There we go. Should be working. I don't know if it's gonna have the same title. It says streaming through Streamlabs, so let me see if it's still going through the computer version. 1 second. 1 second, guys. Let's get this. Let's hopefully this is getting all sorted out and things will actually like look proper and not be ass. Let's see. Open up. Picture size. Yeah, that was annoying. Okay, sweet. It's fixed. It's working. Let me resend out the link really quick before we get back to it, just because it's gonna link people into the old stream. It's just like 10 minutes of nothing. That does absolutely nothing for anybody. So 1 second. Just let me post that up, and then we will get back to what's going on with the video. So let's see. 1 second. I just gotta delete the old one real quick. And we should be good. Should be good. So you guys can see it now. It's all fine and dandy. It's all working. There's no issues. I should use that time to like add in Yusei. Dang it! I can't believe I forgot Yusei. Fuck, man. Anyway, we're good. We're doing good. What's up, Guild Zero? What's up, King Sinbad? We're back in the video, and hopefully we can get things going. As I was saying, Asta, I think Asta has a lot of really high potential. I think his design is really good. I like a lot of the emotional kind of like ways his characters tied to different events in the story, from both either for better or for worse, as well as how he's kind of evolved over the story. And it's not so drastic that he doesn't seem like Asta anymore. It's in a way that was, it's more about him growing up. Like when he didn't want to kind of like leave Patri to kind of just be in despair. He wanted to save him because it wouldn't be like the world that he wanted if he abandoned him. It wouldn't be in leagues with his whole like idea of what's right. I really like that about Asta. I think that's definitely one of the better traits of him. I don't want to put him as GOAT. As like in terms of like my main characters of all time, I think he has the potential to be one though. That's where I think Asta's the biggest thing is he's not played out enough yet in his story for me to want to put him in GOAT. But I'm willing to bet that when I get to like 100, 200 chapters further in Black Clover, when we see more of like a much older Asta and like maybe even just like through this arc, because he's like. He's like the rookie guy. They're like he's potentially going to be in the Hall of Fame. We're not 100% sure, but we think so once we get there. That's definitely the kind of like thing for me when it comes to Asta, like determining whether he's an S or he's in GOAT. Because for me personally, when you get to that GOAT tier, that's like my personal favorites ever. And Asta is definitely on the track to be in there. And speaking of some of my favorite ever, the next up we have Atem. One of the best main characters, in my opinion, one of my favorites, so super quotable in both the Japanese and the dub, as well as one of the only animes that I really like dubbed and sub. And I personally would give like a slight bias to the dub, just because I think Dan Green's Atem just sounds great when you get further in the series. I really like as well, like the journey he had going from this memory lost, psychotic like spirit to this more heroic good guy like further in through all these events. Amazing design, fantastic soundtrack for him. Everything about Atem I would put as like just rounds up into my favorite. Even has like parts where he kind of like lost his way, went through a little bit of darker stuff and like Waking the Dragons. It just things are really just starting to mess with him. And I love the conclusion. I love how that out like when he's in that final moments of the original and he's walking towards the afterlife. Everything about Atem was fantastic. And he's one of my favorite main characters ever, obviously. And then, rounding up, we have a character who I have a mixed position on. I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people that, have partaken in either the manga or in the anime have a mixed feeling on the dude. Atem's from what series? He's from Yu-Gi-Oh! Original Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Atem. But up next, Boruto. So Boruto I'm very mixed when it comes to just like many of the normal aspects about Boruto. Because obviously one of the things about him people didn't like is he essentially comes off at the start of the series like a spoiled like millennial. He's rude and disrespectful. He's that generic like kid who's just been from a nice life. He becomes like he's an asshole. He's just doing all this stuff just to kind of like give the middle finger to like his parents to get attention. He's not good at the start, but I think that was like the point, is they were going to try and make this kid who didn't realize what he had, and through events obviously like gains more respect and becomes more mature. I think those things about Boruto are good, because you have to factor in what he was like at the start and really just like the kind of idea they were going through, and I think they captured that really well. I'm not a huge fan on his design. And also one of the things that I would factor in towards like the characters is what are their powers when it comes to like any action fighting series. What is the main character's kind of gimmick? What is their ability going to be that does something cool with them? He got Atem, he's got like all this, he's in a style of dueling, obviously with their cards and stuff, but his is based more around either, it's going to be like magic or some crazy trick toys, mythical monsters, and stuff from like the mystical Egypt and stuff. Like there's a lot of really cool themes in there. So when you look at really what the power system is like in that world, you can look at his and think of his really cool style. Asta's got anti-magic. He's got these sick anti-magic swords. So he's like a super counter to a lot of these the casters within Black Clover. It's a really interesting way to go about it. I don't know what Aladdin got in the end game, but I remember he got that cool vectors, and he kind of got to like, he got like this heavy like redirecting kind of like magic style on top of all of his other like normal spells. And he's kind of like that, wasn't he? Kind of like the Avatar also with spirits. Andy's an undead. He's got this really cool way he like uses his body for combat, and he's got this like badass sword style where he uses his arm as a sheath. Boruto doesn't really have anything in terms of like a badass like original power. I know his karma is sort of like that, but all it really does is absorb stuff and then shoot it back out. It's not that interesting. Like he definitely has like the least interesting. It'd be like if Aladdin only had the vector magic, the kind of like way to redirect attacks. It's I don't know. Or Meliodas is on there. It'd be like Meliodas only had full counter. It's like, yeah, it's useful, but like how entertaining is it? I don't think Boruto's fighting style is very interesting at all. The only thing about Boruto when it comes to like his like more specific like character designs or ability skill set is the form he got recently where he has the one horn. I thought that was really cool. I think that looked badass. I like that a lot. So I would give it at least points for that. So really, like all I can get from Boruto for the most part is like he had this journey of like, he had this experience where he kind of like realized how good he had it and stuff. There are definitely some more positive parts to him. And then he's got that form, so I don't know. I don't really have a lot to say about Boruto. I mean, like, even his own personal struggles, when you really look at him, look at these other characters. Atem lost his memory, and then he had to, like, go through all these events to get it back so he can save the world, and he wasn't sure whether or not he was evil when he was alive, or if he was, like, a good or bad pharaoh, and he had all these conflicting points about it. There was a lot in there about his own personal journey. Asta, came from dirt. He was a freaking peasant. Orphan who couldn't even have magic. Like every single checkbox that Asta had, he didn't really have. Like no magic, check. What about your like your status and wealth and class and position? Peasant, also orphan. He really didn't have anything, and he's not that. Not a hate on Asta. He's not that smart. So on top of like all these things, he's not a very intelligent guy. Like things just kind of like he got dealt a bad hand constantly until he got the anti-magic grimoire. And until that point, like I said, he had like very little going on in his life. He had his family at the orphanage, but when he had one really nice thing to hold on to, and I'm glad that he never really let all the hardships in life get to him, and it was more about like him looking for positive things and trying to do good stuff. And really, like, then look at Boruto. Boruto's journey is still good, but in terms of a main character, it falls flat overall. Because when you think about it, like on a personal level, it's like, yeah, that's really sad. Like it's unfortunate that this happened to him. That it was more about his he couldn't get enough attention from his parents. which is relatable. I mean, it's obviously, you know, anybody can remember a time where they were a kid and, you know, they were getting ignored for something or other. But when you compare it to, like, the standard main character, like, thing, and you see, like, all the stuff they had to go through, Boruto just doesn't stack up. I'm gonna put him at C. This one had to be a little bit of a rant because I like Boruto, and I'm not on the hate train, but I don't find him that interesting. I like his form. I think there's interesting stuff set up, but as he is right now, I mean, and plus it's not like Andy, because Andy's only been like Undead Luck's been out for what, 5 months, 4 or 5 months or so. I think they're at chapter 20. I think it came out what, January. It's about 5 months, and he's already got some really nice character parts to him, and some mystery about his character and now he's with this new group. We don't know all the stuff that he's gone through even to get to this point. There was a lot in there that's very interesting, and Boruto doesn't have a lot of that. I don't know. I don't find him as nearly as interesting. You know, I've seen some people. Yeah, Boruto C or D. I don't think he's a D because he does have some redeeming qualities, like I said. The fact that one of the big things that people don't like about him is because it was intended to be that way. He was supposed to be this spoiled kid who just, you know, he was mad about everything. And he was all pissed off about not getting attention. But really, it was from characters that we've seen through the previous story, and we saw, you know, what they all did to kind of make this much safer, more peaceful world. And Boruto, you know, amongst a lot of the youth, didn't really know or recognize that. So as the readers, we were more annoyed by it. But when you think about it, like I said, I think that was the point. I think the point was to make Boruto this spoiled, bratty kid. What's up, Mason Lewis? How's it going, man? D, I still don't like him in the manga. I think he's got redeeming qualities, so I'm going to put him in C. You should put Accelerator from Tor. I haven't known anything about Accelerator. I have seen his name all over the place. I still haven't gotten to that series. Aladdin has strength magic. Yeah, I know he's got a lot of different kinds of magic. Have you read Jagan? Yeah, I should have put him in there. There's a couple characters, like, I wanted to have it be enough, but not huge. Because I've done one of these tier lists before, but it was a video, and I think all the, like, even just me talking without having a conversation with other people, it was still like 16, 20 minutes, I don't remember. And I knew this one was going to be long, because we're, what, like about a half hour in total? Not counting the 10 minutes or whatever from the first stream. So even if it is 12 minutes and we're only 5 people in out of 50-something. So it'll be at least hour and a half to 2 hours, I would guess, for this stream. Clover has vector manipulation as badass. Yeah, but that also depends on how you use it. Like, you could have something super basic, like, I can levitate stuff. But if you use it to, like, maybe, like, pick up debris and fire it at speeds where they're essentially bullets, or, you know, you elevate yourself to make yourself faster for, like, martial arts and stuff. There's a way to use it that really needs to be that makes it more interesting. The fact that Karma, like, you don't absorb an attack. It's not like, oh, I absorbed Amaterasu and then I can deploy it out and combine it with a different jutsu, or maybe shape it into something and have like an Amaterasu sword. But it's literally just like absorb in one hand, shoot out in the other. And I mean, it's not like there are other characters with similar things. I mean, you have Ukitake in Bleach has essentially that with his Shikai, and his is boring. He's got like the most boring Shikai in the whole series. And you put that as like pretty much all Boruto really has, because he's got like a bunch of random jutsu, but like a bunch of random jutsu is just a bunch of random abilities. I mean, who cares? If you don't have something that stands out as a theme, I don't think these are as interesting. You have to have, I think when you have a battle series, a big battle series, you have to have an interesting thing about your main character, because it's the character you're going to see the most. It's the person you're going to see the most throughout the series, and they need to have something to kind of like catch the reader. They have to have something that makes them kind of pop and makes them more fun to see. Boruto doesn't have that. That's the thing about Boruto that makes him is less interesting. He needs like an ace ability. He needs like, oh, you know who I forgot to add in? Oh my god, I forgot to add in Lucille from Ariadne. I actually really like that. I'm like 80-something chapters in. I'll add that to the next one. I'll do maybe like a much bigger one and have way more characters. This one I think was just pretty good to start with. I mean, 53, I still don't know how long this is going to go. It's 14 minutes now, and we still haven't even got to the next step. So let's get to the next one. You can ask questions. I don't know if I'm going to get to them, AJ, because this is not a battle stream. This is obviously the tier stream. We can do that at a different time. Maybe we'll do a power level one at some point. So Deku. This is either going to rile some people up or make some people smile. So Deku, I like Deku, but he's never been my MC. There's never been a point in time where Deku did something cool where I was just like, hell yeah, that's my MC right there. It obviously, like, you can have a main, if you had to pick like a main one, I think anybody can guess my main one, especially out of. But if you had a main one, you can only pick one that's different. But obviously, you can have like a list of like a bunch of characters you really like that you're a big fan of, and you can have more than just one that you kind of want to rep. And even if we're like out of this, if I had said like, oh, I have 8 characters or something that I really want to press, I can add another one right now. It wouldn't matter if it was if I did or didn't for Deku, because Deku wouldn't be on there. Deku at no point has ever been somebody that I've been like, yeah, hell yeah, Deku, this is my guy right there. I mean, even in parts like in the movie, like I saw clips, have you seen the clips for the new movie where him and Bakugo fight that one guy, or big fights in the manga, like when he first fights Overhaul, or really his big battle against Overhaul. I was never too hyped about Deku, and I never really wanted to be like, hell yeah, Deku, that's my guy right there. I never got to that point. He's always been somebody that I've liked, but I've never been too hyped to get into it. That's like my relationship that I've always had with Legend of Zelda. Like I've played a lot of the games, and I don't think there's any I didn't enjoy, but I never was that hyped for when it come out. Like I'll get hyped for a fucking Kirby game, super hyped up. I love Kirby games, not all of them, but most of them are really good. But I also just like that there's an idea of the character that goes along with it. And they can be, way more in depth or way more like well written or whatever. You can do kind of crazy, like some super deep character with all this stuff. Doesn't mean you're gonna vibe with them. You can still acknowledge that they're well characters and they're good, but still not want to put them up in your big list. So Deku, I still think Deku is a good character, right? Because he's done a lot of, he's put in a lot of hours to be where he's at now. He's had a lot of good character interactions. The only thing about him, I would say for sure, is I wish there was a point where like he just got mad, manned up, and just slapped the shit out of Bakugo. And it's like, hey man, you need to quit being an asshole. If we just got some part where he just put the dude like in the face of reality, and then he's just like, listen, we're not having your shit anymore. You need to get over this, and either like become a normal like helpful person or shut the hell up. It's something like that with Deku. I think I would rank him a lot higher, but I mean, he's a nice guy. I mean, there's no point where he really comes off as a bad character. I mean, because the parts that people don't like about him are the more sensitive human parts, which I don't think that sounded weird. The more sensitive human emotional parts, and I don't think that that's a bad thing for a character to have. It just depends on how it's kind of presented. But Deku has always been very presented as like this nerdy kind of dude. So, like, him being a little bit more passive, I think, just fits with his character. But he's not a bad guy. I mean, there's still a lot of potential for him to grow in the future. Obviously, My Hero is not done, and it's, like, in the middle of going through, like, probably the biggest point in the story right now. I don't think anybody's going to disagree that right now in My Hero that they're at the biggest point they've ever had within the writing, right? Because you got all the stuff with the villains and whatnot. There's nobody that's going to say, like, this isn't going to be a big, impactful arc. That's not going to happen. It's going to be very impactful. It's going to have very big story affecting points. So, there's a lot to come up. But right now, I'm going to put Deku at a solid B. Because I will acknowledge the parts of them that are really good and really well. And we did talk about earlier about like certain character kind of just like traits and aspects about them. I think they do matter. Design wise, I'm never a huge fan of Deku's design. I do like his the blue energy 100%. I do think that's a really nice design. I do like that one. I'm not a huge fan of Deku's other designs. And I don't really like his power that much. That is one thing that I've expressed many times. And probably, like, my real biggest gripe about Deku. And that's why I wouldn't rank him low, because my biggest gripe about him is something that is more personal in, like, like, what would have shown up. I think instead of Deku getting, like, all these other abilities, it should have been, he's got the super strength, and then it's different ways he employs them. Maybe he, like, learns a martial arts style. Maybe he gets some gear that, like, is beneficial. Like, if he can only use, like, if he had one that it could store up 100% of an attack, but it absorbs like this will take 5% from each of your attacks. So if you attack with 30% while it's active, you're really going to be doing 25%. But then after enough of that 5% absorbed, you do it 20 times, and bam, you have 100% attack charged up. Something like that. And he knows 2 different tech people. He knows the one girl that, like, he met during, like, early in the story, like, who has the pink hair. And then you had the tech girl from the first movie. And both movies are canon. So this, what's the girl? Melissa? She's canon. Deku knows 2 of these people. I wish that Horikoshi went with that, but it's not a big gripe. It's more of like a, man, I kind of wish that they did this. It's like my my stance on like August's position back in the Alvarez arc. It would have been cooler if he had a way bigger fight, but all that really would have done in terms of like for changing the story was just have a much bigger battle spectacle. It's one of those things that's, it's not vital. It's obviously not nearly as important and impacting trait as like a character's story, what they do within the story, like their personality, how they handle situations. It's a much more kind of like forward tier thing. It's not like in the big back important things. So Denji, here, let's go on a big guy. I just want to say really quick before we get into another character, I'd really appreciate if you would thumbs up the video, thumbs up the stream. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I try and do these streams once a week. Just talking to the people within the stream. It's like a community stream. Since like I can read comments and videos, but when I do comments and videos, I can easily get like, okay, how many comments is enough? Like I don't want to undercut, but I don't want to spend too long looking at comments. As well as I think it's not as engaging. Like if I reply to a comment, I have to hope that whoever I reply to sees it and then responds, and who knows how long the gap of time is going to be versus here, where I can just talk to you guys and just be like, discuss in real time of what where this is. Deku is kind of annoying. I mean, he's annoying to some, and I can understand why. Deku's crying and kind of being a little bit too passive isn't bad. But I can see where people don't like it because he's passive and like a bit wimpy in the times that aren't serious. When stuff gets like really big and it's like a villain's doing something, lives are at stake, Deku's on the ball. He's in there. He's putting in every single amount of effort he's got in order to save lives and get the job done. When he's in that annoying spot, when he's like being a little bit of a crybaby or a bit of an awkward nerd, it's in much more kind of like peaceful, like slice of life stuff. Like they're doing something at school, he's shopping with somebody and some awkward situation happens. Those are the times really when Deku has like he's being some like introvert weirdo or something. When stuff actually is important, Deku's on the ball. And that's one of the things I will always give Deku credit for, is when it comes down to actually like putting up the position of being a hero, he puts up the position. Deku gets everything, he takes on every situation that needs a serious attitude and a serious mindset, and he does that. And I think that is also one of the good things about Deku. I think one of the probably, if not the, honestly, biggest positive thing to Deku is you have a character who's like that, and when you see him in a normal situation, he's very shy, very kind of passive and docile and a little bit awkward. But when it comes down to like getting the job done, he's on it. And I do think that's probably his best thing, because it shows him as both being very human, but also dedicated to the position. And he's got the mindset of knowing when to kind of like take things like more seriously. So Denji, this is a good one. So Denji, oh here, actually let me read the comments too before we move in. I'll make that part of the thing as I read the comments that show up in between each character on top of it. So White Knight, Deku is boring. I don't think he's boring. Deku is at least better than Tanjiro. It's not too hard. Tanjiro is Deku with less pros and more cons. I don't even think their characters are very similar, to be perfectly honest. Best arc so far. It's the biggest point. Yeah. Deku with Aladdin. That's fine. Like Luffy powers. I like Luffy's powers too. I'd put Aladdin at A tier in my honest opinion. Oh, like I said, I haven't read the very last arc for Magi, so I don't know if like that would push him up from B to A. Like, I already said that. I'll finish the last arc at some point, but I haven't gotten around to it. Denji was super good at first, but I've grown really tired of him. Oh man, I've loved Denji more as the story goes on. I don't know what you're talking about. Whereas Aladdin is B tier. Denji is very good. I agree. Where's Taiyo Asano? I don't know who that is, at least off the top of my head. Ichigo. Ichigo is in there. That is true. So Denji. I thought about using Denji in his like normal human form, but I mean, really, it wouldn't be Chainsaw Man if I wasn't using his devil charged up, like chainsaws all over the place form. Denji is a character I've expressed my interest. Oh, I haven't read that yet. I've read the first like 2 chapters. It's on my list to read. I haven't gotten around to it. I'm glad that it didn't get axed. I'm glad that it didn't get axed because I thought the series was interesting, and I do plan on reading more of it. That and Act Age are 2 series that are on my list. I haven't gotten around to it. I've been reading Baki. Yeah, I'm gonna catch up. I'm going to. I just haven't gotten around to it. Oh, yeah, Guts is on that list. So Denji. Denji is somebody, since the very start of Chainsaw Man, I've expressed how much I liked him, and I can understand certain people, like I said, like, might get tired of him, because you have to pay... Denji's a character you have to pay a lot of like deeper attention details to understand where his character is going. Because when you look at someone like Aki in 70, I think 70 chapters? Is it 70 or 72? I don't remember the exact chapter number off the top of my head for Chainsaw Man. But 70-something chapters into the series, Aki has been extremely well written. His story's been really deep. He's had a lot of dark turns, but also parts of getting back onto his feet. He's got a really important story. Aki's got a lot of really like good writing so far. And Fujimoto, like if you've seen, he's actually pretty like good at writing in both action and the deeper qualities of like just characters and stories. And you can tell from reading like how weird he is, but also like stuff from Fire Punch and like the weird philosophical things he's kind of like put in the stories. I'm gonna read Golf King at some point, but Denji at the start, I don't think that he was like because if you have a character that's just boring, there's nothing really to him. There's a difference between that and Denji. Denji was somebody who never had the chance to become somebody because he spent like his whole childhood working. He was working day in and day out trying to pay off the Yakuza for the bill that his dad, like the money that his dad owed him. So Denji never got to really a point where he got to be a kid. He got to shape who he was through experiences and, you know, interactions and whatnot. And you can tell at the very start of the series, like Denji has no real like emotional ties to anything. He has not a lot of real human traits, and he's developed that throughout the story. He's like had like parts about questioning his humanity, like realizing that normal like human thoughts are starting to leave him because of his devil's heart. You have parts with Reze and really, really big, surprising plot twists. Like he was going to abandon the Devil Hunters and abandon everybody that he knew and he had made like in a happier life to be with this girl that was the first girl he never really had an emotional connection to. And I think that was already like a really, really big point in Chainsaw Man that I think will have like much higher end effects later on. But even a couple chapters ago, when Denji was talking about how when they defeated the assassins, when he was saying that if he had known why they were doing it, like why they took this job up to kill him and take his heart, that maybe he would have felt bad for them. And so he was trying to sympathize with his enemies and trying to think of more like, am I really the good guy? Like, who's the good guy? It's all dependent on your perspective. Because, like, what if they were fighting for something really important and all it had to take for them was to take down some stranger? And I think Denji's writing has been really good. The action is really fantastic. I think Denji stands out a lot amongst a lot of main characters. It's, like, in general, I think he stands out in general. I was going to say in Shonen, but there aren't a lot of main characters like Denji. And I think it's how weird he is where he's in the shonen category, but he doesn't act like a shonen character at all. And he's not like someone like Eren who's in a shonen, but he's much more of like a serious and aggressive main character. But Denji is more of this kind of like running towards more of like a drama, like psychological action. And that's one of the weird things about Chainsaw Man. I think it's very excellent. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. And then when you get down to his powers, Denji's design is really good. Like his normal one, he's got a suit, or not even a suit, he's got a collared shirt, plain pants, a tie, and then it's like because he's a working man. Like the whole Devil Hunters is a job. And so he's a working man in that, and then when he like does his job, pulls the cord on his chest and gets his chainsaw devil powers, he's like, it's like, this is what he is like on the job. He's a monster in a suit, and I think it looks badass. Like, everything about it is really cool. I really like Denji. I really like Chainsaw Man. Like, Chainsaw Man doesn't have good character design. No, bullshit, man. Chainsaw Man character designs are fantastic. All of the devil-human hybrids look great. All of the devils look horrifying, and they all look unique. Chainsaw Man is excellent at character design. The thing that throws people off is Fujimoto. You can tell Fujimoto is a good artist, 100%. The way he draws things are different, and it's one of the things that I really like about Made in Abyss, and I can't believe I didn't put anyone from Made in Abyss on here, I just realized that. But Made in Abyss, the series, has essentially 3 different art styles constantly in use. You have the landscape style, which is more towards this mystical kind of weird, unknown, unexplored environment of wonders and dangers. Then you have the people, and most of the people look normal, but we don't see most of the people. We see mostly the children, and they're drawn in this kind of chibi, cutesy art style, whereas the like monsters and like the weird monster people are all drawn as like nightmare fuel. They're all drawn as super creepy. So you have these 3 different styles all coming together in the series. And each of those different styles plays into a different different aspect of the series. So they all come together and they look really well. That's the way Chainsaw Man, that's what Fujimoto does with his series. Because most of the people, their art style, it looks a little weird. But then when you see the devils, they're drawn with way more detail. They're drawn with way more like added components to them, and they're shaded differently. And then when you look at the environments look great. When he draws buildings and streets and cars, they look fantastic. So when you mix all 3 of these, it's like these weird kind of crude beings, the humans, these like queer, they look weird. They're kind of crudely drawn in some aspects. They're these crude beings wandering around in this world that's built beautifully with these horrifying otherworldly creatures showing up. It adds an entire different kind of story style that I think works perfectly with Chainsaw Man. And that's what I think one of the best aspects about it is. I think the weird kind of drawing style that Fujimoto has works super well. Not the devils and hybrids. Dude, I love the devils and hybrids. Human design looks the wet way, I think, on purpose. They look weird because that's just how Fujimoto draws people. But I think that's intentional. Like I said, you think that he draws monsters and buildings with this much detail and this much, like, very pristine looking, like, aspects, but he can't draw a person? I'm telling you, I think he draws people that way on purpose. So they're more crude and they kind of, like, look weird in comparison. So I think Denji is excellent. I love Denji's character. I think Denji is one of the more interesting characters to show up in a big, like, ongoing series in a long time. Not just shonen, not just, not seinen, not even, like, Western comic books, movies, or TV shows. I think in terms of fiction, within the last few years, Denji is one of the most standout main characters you'll find. And because he covers multiple grounds. Like, the main parts about Chainsaw Man that got people in it is, like, it's got super gory, it's super action, it's got these badass designs, so you have that sick metal tone, but then you have all this, like, psychological aspects of the characters and questioning, like points of their humanity in their life, and even in the last couple chapters, you had Aki kind of, like, put down his revenge because he had something to live for, and he didn't want to risk it. Chainsaw Man is excellent. And excellent in so many ways. I'm putting Denji at S tier. He's deserving. He's the same way as Asta to me. That the only reason that I wouldn't put Asta and Denji in GOAT is because I think the aspects that are the parts in the story they're gonna hammer that home for me just haven't happened yet. I think if I can, like, look at the entire series, like, if it'd be like looking at something before it's finished. You just kind of had it as a whole of whenever it finishes. Those story pieces just haven't happened yet. Same thing with Asta. I think in a, ways later into the story, they're gonna get more big hype things that's gonna hammer them both into GOAT tier. I love Denji. I know it's because these are 2 big, like, these last couple have been pretty big ones. Because Denji, I had to explain it for Denji because Chainsaw Man is really new, but I had to give reasons why I'd put him in S tier because S is the second highest. S is like the highest they can be before they get into, like, my staple characters. Like, the characters that I would, like, pick these as your top forever if you had to erase all the others. That GOAT tier to me is, like, your personal favorites throughout all of fiction. and Atem is one of them on there. Asta and Denji are both runners up there. This one as well. These next couple, some of these are going to be a little rough when I explain them. So Edward Elric, probably one of the most hyped main characters there is in anime and manga. Obviously, from a very hyped series, Full Metal Alchemist, and obviously, I don't need to go into the difference between Brotherhood and the original. We're just going off of Full Metal in general. Edward, I don't want this to sound bad, is why I want to take a soft approach to this one, because I like Aaron, or not Aaron. I like Edward. Edward is a really cool design. I like his story. I think my favorite part, honestly, about his design is the story gave him the metal arm that he constantly, as long as he's got it working, he always has a weapon on him with his alchemy. I really like, I think he's got a lot of really, really positive things about him, and he's got a really good story. He's got a really cool power. The thing that I want to emphasize, though, when I put him where I'm going to put him, is I like him, but he was never, like I said, one of those guys that I just hammered into, like, this is, like, one of my main guys. So I'm going to put him at A. And I know there's going to be people mad, because he's really good. He's a really good character. I won't deny that. I won't deny he's excellent writing, a really good story. The only reason I wouldn't put him higher is because, like I said, he's never one of those guys you vibe with. A character that you just have, like, a personal, really strong like for. You know what I mean? You have those characters that just, like, I love this character. Like, they hit all the marks that makes you really like them. He's really good. I enjoy him, but he's not like my dude for that. And a similar case is right afterwards, because I realized when I had the E guys back to back, it was gonna get into, like, the same issue, because we have Aaron next, and Aaron, I like Aaron. I don't love him. I don't love him as a character. He's cool, but there's never a point where I was like I said, it was the same kind of thing with Edward. There was never a point where I really, like, vibed too heavy with him. And I think in terms of, like, his character and the way that he's been written out, when you really kind of, like, compare, he's got a lot of the same things with Edward, in my opinion. He's got really good writing. He's got a really good design. He's got a cool power, but he doesn't have. Oh, thank you to whoever subscribed. I have to pull up my thing. Thank you, Brad Hatter. Appreciate the subscription, man. Yeah, he's never been too high on my list, and I think I would put him equal to Edward in A, but I'm gonna put him at B, and this is my personal opinion. I'm gonna tell you why. What lowers him to B, in my opinion, is the events of the last couple chapters, when all the stuff went down and how it felt like such a big hype, like the big alteration tipping point. I won't go into reasons, because it looks like Minzel hasn't read the manga. But there's a point where you think it's like the big climax, and it just kind of goes slow. It'd be like, I'm trying to think of, like, a series maybe that everyone's watched. It's like if you were watching Lord of the Rings, and right before that big battle, like, they got everyone stationed up, sides are getting ready to charge in and do battle with each other, and it's like, well, let's spend the next 20 minutes, like, hanging out at the Shire and seeing how those guys are doing, but then we'll come back to it. It's the pacing of it right now has been really is lowered it for me a tiny bit. Next one is Ganta. So Ganta, or Ganta. That's I almost got them mixed up, because the main character of Mar, who I just realized I forgot to, Ginta, but this is Ganta, main character of Dead Man Wonderland. A series I always really liked. It was one of those, like, it was one of those animes I just remember watching so clearly. I think it was because the events that followed, like, I watched it, and then I found out there was way more, and then it wasn't even halfway done when I got into it, and then I think it was like I got finally used to the monthly style, and then I think the artist, she had a baby, so she was off for like a year or something, some super long period of time, and then it came back and finished. And it just has a long memory. Also, during the time of waiting for chapters, I remember the night where it was like, there's supposed to be a chapter in a few days or something. I, like, broke part of like a day or so later, like, I broke my arm, and so, like, there's a lot in there for that. So I remember a lot. I like his story. I like Dead Man Wonderland. I think it's good. I think it's a fun series. I like Ganta. I like where he's at. I like him as a character. I think he does a lot of interesting parts. But there's a lot of times in the story where he doesn't feel like the main character. And it feels more like it's kind of leaning towards Crow in a lot of ways. And how even in the parts where Ganta it is like in the spotlight, he doesn't do a lot of main character stuff. And even thinking back on the series, like all the parts that I remember like pretty well aren't him. Like there's like the parts like I remember obviously everything to do with Crow. And that dude's a badass. Shinji or oh my god, no. Is it Shinji? Oh my god, it's I think that's his name, right? Senji, I think. Yeah, Senji. I think it's Senji. But Crow as he is with his sick blood blades, and then when he learned how to like do invisible black, and then he can you could break the sound barrier to like mess with the nameless worm. There was a lot of really or the worm eater power. He felt like the main character lines because he had like a spot where it was like Asta and Yami, but it'd be like if it was only Yami's badass parts and then Asta rarely did anything. As like the easiest way I can describe how it was. And then design wise, his design is okay. He's actually because like even like this power up form, it doesn't change. It just has some cool marks, but that's about it. There's no like badass like horn or like wing or like some weird vector line. Well, there's the vector lines, but it's more of like an attack. It's not like they hover around him or something. He's yeah, I'm gonna put him in C. He's about like the same thing with Boruto to me. And if he had a cool design, if he had something that kind of like I said, a cool form or more techniques, or I mean, really some more kind of like big main character moments, then I would put him at B. Like he's like C borderline B, but very very kind of like lower things are like why he's not in there. Okay, we got a big guy. We got a big guy. We got Gash Bell, main character of Zatch Bell. I thought about putting Kyo in there, but I kind of want to focus since he is the main character. It'd be like counting Lucy in here with Natsu, but I decided to go with just Zatch or Gash because obviously in the title it is named after him. So there is like a slight more extra lean on him being the main character. Kind of like I said, kind of like Natsu and Lucy. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I got to read the comments before I go to the next one. That was my plan. Let's see. Obviously, any two characters that aren't involved in this, like you say Naruto or Ichigo, I'm gonna get there. They're both in here. Both Naruto and Ichigo are in here, so we're gonna get to both of them. Ganta's okay. Yeah, Ganta's cool. Ganta's cool. He's not great. I think that's one of the things about him. He's annoying. He's annoying in the beginning, but that's on purpose. He's like a school kid who just got thrown into an all death row prison like amusement park. He had full right to be like be a little bit of a pussy at the start. He was completely ripped out of his whole life and his whole life. Like it was not a situation that any normal person would be able to handle. And it's not like this all happened and then like 5 years later the court finally settles. This is like like a week or so after this all happened. He's the sole survivor and he pretty much is kept within custody. And then he gets sent to this crazy madhouse where you can die for the entertainment of people in his amusement park. He had the full right and full fairness to be a bit of a pussy and all that. And he was like 14. He wasn't even an adult. Like, that would fuck with anybody. That would fuck with anybody. That was way much for him. And then obviously, like, that didn't even stay. He got braver. He got more collected. Thought on Tower of God anime. I haven't watched it yet. I want to set up a Patreon and then have a couple like animes, because like I read more manga than I watch anime. I very rarely watch new animes. Most of the time when I watch animes, it'll be rewatching something. I'm rewatching an older series, or I'm watching like a new episode of something that I read specifically, like watching the Black Clover anime. Or stuff that finishes, and then it's like, man, I guess I'll see what the hype is about. People stopped talking about it like a month ago, and then I'll watch that. But if I do a Patreon, then I can put up and say like, hey, yeah, watch, we do stuff on Patreon for like $2 a month or something. All I do is I watch a video and I give commentary. Something like that is what I'm saving for stuff like Tower of God, and it would give me an incentive to watch more series and put out more content. Yeah, so let's get back to it. More of the story. Trust people in yourself. Do what other people think, and make sure that you are what you are, including cliches. I'm so far beyond where that question was. I don't even know who you're referring to. But anyway, let's get to Zatch. So, or Gash. It's either way, because obviously, like, in the dub, it's Zatch. In the official volumes, it's Zatch, but the original, it's Gash. But Gash, Zatch, whatever. I'm going to do him as a singular character. So, Gash is fantastic. Gash is one of my favorite main characters, and where that'll determine where he's at, I'll explain. So, he's this character. He showed up in this world. He had no memory of what happened to him. He didn't even know the fact he wasn't human. He's just afraid and alone. Finds this guy who, they find out that he's a demon, and he's got to, like, be in this tournament. The freaking, like, for the next person on the throne for another realm for 1,000 years. Like, big shock at the start. A lot of going on towards his character, and then, like, all the epic battles throughout this series, all, like, the friends made and lost. There's a lot going on throughout it. And I think overall, like, for one, very good series in general. When you look at the series, Zatch Bell itself, fantastic. I think it's done really well. I think it's excellent. It's one of those really good, like, series I would recommend anybody that likes, like, Battle Shonen to check out. It's one of those ones, as long as you like action style Shonen, you're gonna like Zatch Bell. It's great. But the thing about Zatch that I really like, one, like I said, is his ability to kind of, like, work with Kyo and like how exactly, like, that goes throughout the story is great. But I'd say the best thing about him is, like, one of the things I think about Urza a lot, and why I think, like, her biggest thing I think that makes her a great character. It's similar to how, like, you have this, like, with Urza, you have this very strong, stoic, powerful woman who's just able to do all this stuff, but then you put her in front of, like, Jalal, and she becomes, like, this frightened schoolgirl with, talking to her crush with no confidence. And that reminds you that, even if she's, like, all these amazing things, she's still a young woman, and she's still human. And I really like that about her character, because it is nice when you have, like, these absurd, like, characters who are just, like, crazy powerful and can do all these things. And then you're reminded, like, more, like, grounded aspects to him. And so Zatch Bell, when you have all this, like, crazy story and all these intense epic battles and, like, all these emotional parts, and you're reminded also, because when you get the slice of life parts, he's, like, 6 years old. He's a little kid, and you see, like, him, like, the day prior, like a week prior or something, he was, like, fighting some jaguar demon in a forest in a jungle, and they're being hunted by, like, this human that works with him, who was, like, I can't remember exactly the character. I remember the dude in his Momoto as demon. I think he was like an African hunter or something, because that was, like, the thing. It was, like, a big hunting cat kind of demon, and then this guy who was, like, this African hunter. He might have been South American or something, but you know what I mean? I have to look into it. But yeah, and then, like, he's in this intense battle with these guys in the woods as they're literally being hunted. And then, like, the next time you see him, like, the next chapter, he's in the park in some silly, like, outfit, and he's playing with toys with a bunch of other, like, little kids. I love that about, like, the character, because it really, like I said, it really grounds him, and it shows, like, the aspects about him you don't think about when you're in these intense story arcs. That he's just a kid. And I think that, like, stuff like that, his relationship with the other characters, like, the stuff he had to realize and go through. I put Zatch as one of my favorites. Dude's a goat. I love him and Kyo. Kyo, I'd put it S, but I think Zatch I would put at GOAT, because I do love Zatch Bell. I think it's a fantastic series. If you put both of them, like, if I had to count Kyo and Zatch as the same, I would probably put them at, like, S, borderline GOAT, but I think if you're just counting Zatch by himself, GOAT. I love Zatch Bell. It's such a good series, and it's a lot of fun. Fire Force ending coming soon. Also, the guy said this was the last arc. We don't know how long that arc will be, but that could easily change. We don't know. Who knows? Yeah, Bowser Kerrigan, man. Yeah, I love his attacks. I love when they kind of, like, learned that they can supercharge Bowser Kerrigan with, what was it? What was it? Was it Zigarzum? No, it was the 7th spell. Oh my god, I'm trying to remember all the spells. Because it was Zakar, Rock Shield, Bowser Kerrigan was the 3rd. No. The 3rd spell was Rock Shield, or was Zigarzum, or was it? The magnetic one. And then it was Bowser Kerrigan, and then it was Rauzaruk, or was it Sakiru? I'm trying to remember. There's a bunch of them. Then obviously the big one, Shin Bedawan Bowser Kerrigan from the variant. Oh my god, dude, I love Zatch Bell.
I need to buy. I want to buy more of the physical copies, but they're all old, and then the new ones are only in Japan. So if they start bringing those ones over, because they're all updated and they have different covers, where it's a different character and it's got their spell book. It looks fantastic if you look up the new ones. I really want one. Okay, this one will be so all the parts where like I've been ranting and talking about stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to remember some of the spells because I remember there was that was like their biggest one for a while, and then they learned that they could supercharge it when they were fighting Coral Q. But so like we got a lot that we've been kind of talking about and going over. It takes good minute chunks. This one, Gintoki. So is there any comments before? I might just do a quick like little self promotion before I go to it. Like I said, comment below, thumbs up the video, befriend the like button, subscribe button, and yeah, check out my other videos if you haven't on this. I try and do these streams every week. They're more like community streams, either whether I'm talking to people or we're having a fun conversation and just kind of like going over some stuff. Now sometimes I'll have other YouTubers on here. The streams for the most part are like interactions. It's less about like, hey, we're gonna review this chapter, where it's like more of like I want to give my raw thoughts, or when I plan out like a character discussion or something. These ones are more of like a fun like activity between myself and you guys, and sometimes guests. So anyway, also just because I have to, any super chats, donations are appreciated. They're not required. I never want it to be a point where I feel like I have to pressure people into giving me any donations or anything. That's all appreciated in gift. Nothing is ever like set up where you have to. That's why I want to get my Patreon set up, but I just want to do like a $1 and like a $3 or something, and then just do like, yeah, watch the animes that that'll put up there. One day I'm gonna finish that, because the only reason I haven't got to it yet is because I was trying to think. I'm trying to think of tiers and like content, but I think I'm just gonna do, hey, let's watch this episode, and I'll have commentary, and then, it'll be like a $3 tier or something. So something way more affordable, since I'm not going to be doing like the self-recording crazy reactions and a million shows and like stuff. It'll be like, yeah, let's talk about stuff. Because also one of the things is I've like I said, like I show here, I think I got them all in here, is I've only read up to part 3 of JoJo. I haven't watched part 4 or beyond. So anything after part 4, like, or anything beyond part 3 would be something I can add on there, because I know obviously JoJo is really popular. But anyway, Gintoki, I haven't watched or read Gintama. I'm just putting that out there right now. I'm not going to judge Gintoki in any way, shape, or form, because I've only read like the first 3 chapters, and there's like 600 something chapters of this series. I've known nothing about Gintoki. I don't know anything about him other than people really like him. I'm going to skip Goku. So I have to be honest. I put him on here because I knew if I didn't have him on there, people were going to ask where Goku was. Goku obviously being one of the most popular main characters in anime and manga, but I think a lot of that is nostalgia goggles, and it's because he's almost like a staple kind of like one. It's like when you think of holidays and you think Santa Claus. It's like he's just one of those ones is going to be in there, regardless if it's like the quality of them or like what things. If we included GT, I think that would be a little higher, because I am factoring obviously in designs and like abilities and stuff. GT had like Super Saiyan 4 and Dragon Fist and stuff. I wish I could include it, but obviously this is up to Super. I would put it higher. So Goku, Goku's got some cool forms. I like Super Saiyan 1. I like Ultra Instinct. Obviously, I like Super Saiyan 4, but I'm not counting it in this category. But like, man, he's somebody that I can understand why people really like him, but he's not somebody that I get really hyped with seeing. He's not somebody that I ever really kind of like looked at as like, oh, that's my guy. Like Goku hasn't been my person since I actually started getting more into like anime and manga and stuff. At the only point in time I would ever kind of like hype up Goku and like, as Goku's not my guy, is like back when I first started and I only knew a couple series, and Goku was like Goku was one of the only people I knew. Like it was like, oh yeah, I know like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon, Monster Rancher. Like it was all the stuff from like Kids WB and Fox Kids and stuff. When it was that point, I'd put Goku on there. But like Goku has never been my guy. I'm going to put him at C. And I'm going to put him only at C because he's got cool forms. He's got cool fights. He's got a really good theme song. His Ultra Instinct theme song is in fact fantastic. I don't think anyone will deny that. It sounds great, high meme potential. Both of them. He's got that, and then he's got the other one that the old dude sings like during his fights. I think both of those are really good. And also, just because I wasn't thinking about it when I thought about it, the Broly movie was really good. I thought that was a really good movie for an anime movie, mainly because it focused more on Broly than it did on Goku. Yeah, actually, like focused more on like a story arc rather than just Goku just like, I really want to fight this guy to stop this one thing, and it has nothing to do with like who he is as a character or like, well, I guess if he wants to fight people, that is in a way is, but there's no real big further internal conflicts. But there was to Broly, which I thought was really good. I like Broly. Just turned in is this a MC tier list? Yes, it is. We're like a third of the way in or something. I'll try and go a little bit faster. Goku is great, but nobody's perfect. I like Goku. I don't love Goku. Goku's not my guy. Based on the list, it seems we need more female main characters in Shonen. Although I could have added more, but like I haven't read Act Age yet. There's a couple that I could have put in there, but nobody that's like fresh enough on my mind that I really wanted to talk about, and nobody that I really wanted to put in the list that I think would be worth it. Because, well, not worth it, that came to mind. This one was only 53, and I want to do more, but when I do more beyond this, I want to do also more characters. I only did 53 because I didn't know how long this was going to take. I mean, we're already at a pretty good length. We're at an hour in. So, Ichigo is a copy. No, I don't believe that. There are traits that are similar, but they are two different characters. I don't agree with that. That's like if you actually called Goku like a copy of Superman. He has a very similar story base, but they have two completely different like adventures and completely different experiences. It definitely doesn't fit. You can say he was inspired by him, but he wasn't a copy. Luffy is a clone of Goku. That's the same thing. Is if you go by that, then they're like the same character, but obviously they aren't. They have traits about them that are very similar. And I could see where you'd be like, oh yeah, he's inspired from him. But I wouldn't say a copy, because when it's a copy, it has to be like the exact same. There can't be really much for variations. But yeah, let's keep going. Gon. Oh man, this is one of the guys I think I dreaded the most. Like when I put him on here because I knew that people were gonna get mad over where I'm gonna put him and stuff, but I know people really like Gon. I know people like the character. I know that like Hunter x Hunter is super like put on a pedestal. I've never been a huge Hunter x Hunter guy. I like the Chimera Ants and I like the Phantom Troop. I thought that was pretty cool. Like I wish Crollo would get way more spotlight, and whether or not he would, and like stuff with the Phantom Troop and whatnot. There are certain things in Hunter x Hunter I am very interested in. But I don't think they're ever going to get anywhere because of the pacing and the fact that they get like a chapter every 3 years. But Gon, in terms of design, I'm not a huge fan of his design. I did really like when he had the fishing pole and he fought with that. People that I know that like Hunter x Hunter were always meme me because of like stuff about his fishing pole, because I've brought it up. I do really like his fishing pole. I liked when he fought with the fishing pole. I thought it was really interesting to see him use that for like environmental fighting points, and like kind of like a way of almost crowd controlling his opponent. I thought that was pretty cool, but I was never like a huge thing for his character. And then like when you had stuff like how he changed throughout the story of like kind of going from like an innocent kid and becoming a little bit too aggressive and brutal and started to lose himself from his anger, I thought that was good. But like then you do all this damage to him, and then you have a guy fix him, like with, Killua's sister, that kind of just like, hey, yeah, my sister exists that can, like, warp reality and do wishes. And then undo it, and then afterwards, like, you don't, instead of saying, like, what are you gonna do with him now that he's experienced all this, and he, like, was at a point in his life where he thought he might have been crippled forever and been this, like, bedridden, like, disgusting, destroyed individual. He's kind of got almost written off, and he's not the main character pretty much anymore. The stuff that I would have found most interesting from his story, I think the recovery from that would have been way more interesting than him just kind of slowly be consumed by anger. In his regard, just because he's the main character. If he was just some random character or like a bad guy, that'd be different. Because when you do something that with the main character, it's obviously you want to have something beyond that. Unless the story ended there, it's like, well, then why even have certain trait like changes and then not do anything beyond that portion of the story? His power is
his power is I mean, his like I like the fishing pole, but I was never a huge fan on his his rock paper scissors style. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Gon's style or his design. I thought his cool like breaking point when he fought tranny cat bug thing was cool. Was it Pito? I think but transgender cat weird bug thing. Before anyone tries to say like hate speech or something. So at some point that became like hateful. I don't know. Either way, correct it. I don't want to be hateful. Anyway, you have Gon. I like him. I don't love him. I don't want to put him in B because I think his writing is, or C. I don't want to put him in C because I think his writing is good. I'm just not a fan of like where his story kind of went, because where I got interested in his story, it's not happening. Like I said, I know a lot of people like seeing him slowly get angrier and angrier and become more of like a kind of like lose himself to his want to get revenge and fix Kite, but I was more interested in like, well, how is he going to recover from all that? Like, what's his mental state going to be like, and what is he going to be like journeying beyond that? And then you don't really get that. That coupled with like, I don't really like his physical design. I don't really like his powers. I'll put him at B, but I will put him at B because I acknowledge the quality of the writing behind him, and that he does have a very interesting journey. And as well as even if the portion of his story that I was not, like, that my interest wasn't in, the whole part where he kind of becomes, like, enraged and angry and he kind of, like, starts to really fall apart in some ways, is interesting to put on a main character in general, and so I gotta give him credit for that. Whereas Escanor is the main character of Seven Deadly Sins. If I do something kind of like, whatever that category is, the more powerful ultra guys, then I would put him in there. Is Orient good? Yeah, I like Orient. I got Musashi on here. I need to catch up. I'm like 20 chapters behind, but I definitely think it's good. And I think the main character's good. Hisoka and Killua are S, but Gon is A or B. Yeah, I'm not a huge thing on him. I don't know if I'd put Hisoka. I'd put Killua maybe an A, because this is my personal opinion on this. Isn't like, I'm not just going off of characters like overall, because if you try to say it as just like this is a definitive list, then obviously people are gonna get mad. They're gonna disagree with you, and I think I'm trying to like say that my opinion is the only one that matters would be kind of stupid. I find it more enjoyable when you do these lists when you know it's a personal opinion one, because you get less annoyed if a character that you like isn't as high as that that you think they are, because it's from the other person's personal thing and how they feel about it, and I think it's a way less of a it's because when you do it as say like it's an absolute thing, I think in a way you're kind of instigating people to get mad, because you know that when if you just straight tell somebody like like it's like the same way as like saying that character sucks, you suck for liking them, and it's like you're trying to go directly at it and insulting them when you try and make it like absolute. And that's why I'd want to emphasize this as my personal opinion, because someone's like Eren and B, yeah, Eren, I'm not a huge fan of Eren. Like I like him, I'm not a huge fan of him. I'm not a huge fan of his character personally. I think he's interesting, but I'm not a huge fan of his style. That's the reason why he's is not as ranked highly. Because I get why other people like him. I'm not a huge fan of him. Ichigo is not the MC of. No, stop. We're not memeing in this one. Not memeing in this one. At least he locked up his Nen. I mean, yeah, there's stuff that he could have done I don't think we're ever gonna get it. Because not only is he kind of not the main character right now, but the story is just like pretty much never going to progress forward, because fucking what's his name? Oh my god, Togashi is just super set on, I don't know, not doing stuff. I don't know. I'll never know if the whole Dragon Quest memes are real, or if he's actually hurt, or if he's just kind of maybe not motivated right now. But regardless of which, the time it's taking to release chapters is obviously painstakingly. It's like trying to wait for Vagabond. Have I read Kengan Ashura? Not yet. Oh, is that Rin from Blue Exorcist next to Natsu? Yeah. Well, I'm not going to spoil you. There's a part where he gets white hair and his hair, like, permanently changes. I won't tell you the story, like, details, because maybe for, like, an anime only, you haven't read the manga, it would spoil it for you. I don't want to do that. It's a story thing, but there's a part where he gets like pure white hair and his eyes turn like blue and shit, like his fire. Yeah, I won't spoil it for you. Have you played Dai's Eerie? No, I haven't. No, Al. Yeah, I realize I forgot Al. There's a couple characters I forgot. Like I forgot Yusei and stuff. We'll do a much bigger kind of like main character one way later. I'm gonna keep this folder set, and then we'll do one like way later because we're gonna do a rival one. We'll do female leads. We'll do villains. We'll do like arcs and stuff for a series. This is kind of fun. I'm liking this. I'm liking talking to you guys. I think this is a very it's just a very standard conversational piece of just talking about the characters, saying it's ranked. Plus, I think as a content creator, it's one of those things. It sounded weird when I said that, almost like I was trying to be like the smug-eyed, eyes closed way from like South Park. But as like a guy who makes videos as a content creator, I think it's also healthy for the channel because then you guys get some more like knowledge about like my tastes and my opinions and stuff. So you're like, oh yeah, cool. We get to find out a little bit more about this guy. And it doesn't have to be like you don't need to know it, but I think it's something that adds a little bit of extra, extra like community content to the stream and to the channel. Have you seen Umineko? I haven't. It's on my list. I know a lot of people talk about it. Yeah, I'm watching the Kyoto saga right now. That's good. Yeah, D Gray Man. Yeah, I forgot it. Yeah, in fact, and I didn't mean to say it like that. I didn't mean to say it like sounding smug. I'm sorry. I am a very humble guy. I'm not smug. I really hope. I really wanted to do the Donald Trump where he's like, I am the most humble guy, and I am in fact the most humble. I always liked that quote from him. I always thought that was great. But yeah, I don't want to sound like that. Come on. I legit try really hard because that's when YouTubers start to go down like a dark rabbit hole and they start kind of getting shittier. Is when the fact that they have subscribers. I mean, I only have 3,000 something, but that can go to some people's heads. And I know when it starts to go to people's heads is when things just start to go bad for them. That's when every single turn they have and every single kind of like step along that they make ends up just going very poorly. And I don't want that. So I had to do a quick rant because I was worried, like, oh god, please don't let him think that I'm a fucking smug dude. Yeah. Anyway, let's do the next one. Guts. Okay, this is an easy one, but one that I'm looking forward to talking about. Guts is one of the most fucking badass main characters of all time. His design is excellent. He's a dude that started the super great sword trend, and if you've ever seen me play Dark Souls, I will always go for the great sword. I did the same thing in Code Vein too. I love the ultra great swords. I think they're badass. I think it just I think they have a cool presence, and I really like the big ass cleave. I know there's like the overcompensation jokes for like giant weapons, but I think it's just badass in general. I really like when you have those oversized weapons because I think it adds a little bit of extra feel of a fantasy trait to the story when you have like characters with really wild and unique looking weapons. And obviously if you have a weapon as big as a person and some dude's like using it like it's nothing, this thing probably weighs like hundreds to 1,000 pounds, and you have this guy that's physically capable of doing that. I think it adds an extra layer of fantasy onto whatever the series are, and it gives you like some more stuff you have to understand, which strengthens the immersion. But also Guts, he has an excellent story. His like obviously, like I said, badass sword, badass armor. All the stuff with him and the Band of the Hawk is fantastic. I love the transition between styles in the series. Like you get like the golden age when things are just kind of like more like knights. It's more of like an older classical style medieval fantasy story. And then you work into the Dark Age, and after the Dark Age, it comes like Fantasia, and you go from this. You go from, like I said, it's more of like a classical style, medieval kind of setup, and then you go for this dark nightmare world, horrifying, Dark Souls like, and obviously Dark Souls came way before after Berserk, but kind of like that style of world. And then after that, you go rolling into you go rolling into this more fantasy, like magic, and you got monsters everywhere flying around. It's much more of like if you like lived in World of Warcraft, but obviously like a bit darker. But it's more of that kind of like world scenario kind of setup that I think works for it really well. But then his interactions with other characters, the whole like stuff like how he was raised, and like his dad and like all this stuff, like him developing that like that phobia of people like getting close and touching him because of like being raped as a child by Donovan, and that coming back and being part of like his part of the hardships when Casca obviously gets raped by Griffith. There's a lot in there that ties his story together and just keeps building this tragic tale for him. And then when you look at like him getting a crew again and everything about Guts, I think is fantastic. And even parts of like his interactions and his relationship with Griffith, I think is fantastic. I love everything about Guts. I don't have any real negative aspects to talk about Guts. I think Guts in general is just fantastic and badass. I mean, I don't think anyone would disagree with me. I love Guts as a character. Guts is absolutely on my GOAT list and one of my favorite characters of all time. I love Guts' character. And as I've expressed, and I think I've brought this up in my videos before, because I love Berserk. Berserk is what I wish Game of Thrones the show was like. I wish it was more set in that, where it was much more serious, dark, medieval fantasy with like a lot of drama and like more character driven. Well, they had a lot of character driven stuff, but Game of Thrones was more of like, it was more political than anything. It was like a soap opera in a lot of ways, but I wish it was more like Berserk style. But yeah, I love Berserk, and then when you have two of my other favorites, you have Fairy Tail and Black Clover. Both of them, you have Mishima and Tabata. So you have Mishima, who I've been following forever, and then Tabata, who is... I knew about him before Black Clover when he did Hungry Joker, but really, obviously, Black Clover is what's really done well for him in his first, like, big series. And when you find out two mangakas of series that you both really like, and their favorite manga is also Berserk, then yeah, I've got, like, my trinity of fantasy manga. I've got Fairy Tail, Black Clover, and Berserk, and you have the mangaka of the younger ones, a fan of the oldest one. It's so cool. I love that. It makes me it's got an extra level of like roundabout happiness to the series that it gives from just being a fan, and it makes me very pleased to know that they also like something that I like. I think it adds an extra bit of relation to it when you think of them also as like the people and not like these famous content creators, because like Mishima and Tabata are both very successful. Like Mishima's been like a mangaka since 97, was it 97? I think 98. I think it was 98 when Rave Master started, right? Or was it 99? I'd have to look it up, but it was obvious, it was in the early or late 90s. And he's been going for a while. Tabata, you have this guy with this big hit new series, like that, and then you see like they're both just fans of something that you really enjoy as much as like Berserk. I think it adds a little bit extra to him too. But yeah, I love Berserk. Berserk is fantastic. Berserk is one of my favorites. Facts, Guts is an OG. Yeah, I love Berserk. I love Guts. Only got a chapter 36. You need to read more, man. Berserk is so good. Do you like Jugram Hoshwal? I mean, he's okay. Guts' rage is too strong. Oh, dude, yeah, Guts is badass. Next up is Haru. 3,000 people in a room. Have you read Glipter? Yeah, but I'm not cut up. Who is the white-haired next to Natsu? That's Rin from Blue Exorcist. Let's see. Yeah, I love fantasy. I love fantasy series. Like, I can get into, like, sci-fi and like, lots of different stuff. I was just thinking off the top of my head, the first one I thought otherwise is sci-fi. But, I can get into a lot of different types, but my favorite is definitely fantasy. I love like magic and dragons and fantasy shit. It's so cool, and it's like obviously like three of my big favorites are all fantasy style, and it's just so much fun. I really like that style of series. So yeah, let's get to the next one. So what's funny is I've been seeing a lot because Eden Zero has been making a lot of waves lately. You have like we just had a real big hype part in the manga. You just had an anime announcement for it. So Eden Zero fans are all riled up. They're all hyped. And so then you have that, and then obviously there's a lot of now. I interact with a lot of Fairy Tail fans too. So I've been seeing a lot of like those. I'm sure a lot of people have seen like the comment for this character, retweet for this one, and like for another. And there was one with Haru, Natsu, and Shiki. And I was like thinking like all the people involved. I'm wondering how many people that didn't go for Shiki are because they haven't gone for Haru is because they haven't read Brave Master. Because I really like I've read I think pretty much everything Hiromishima's done. I think the only thing I haven't read is he did a Dragon Quest short series, I think recently, like a year or two ago. That one I haven't read because I haven't found anything about it online. I haven't found like a translation for it online. I haven't looked very hard, but I also don't know if there's an official translation or what. I think that's the only one I can think of his work that I haven't read. But other than that, though, I've read pretty much everything from Hiroshima. So Haru Glory, the main character of his first big series, his first serialized work, Rave Master, fantastic character. I really like Haru. When you look at like the three main characters as well, you have Natsu's more independent. Like the Fairy Tail Guild is more, they're more inherently nice, but if they have to like kind of pretty much go against good people because of they're a threat to the guild or something, they will. They 100% will. That's just one of the things about the Fairy Tail Guild is they'll go against their government, they'll go against other guilds. If whoever they're facing is like a threat to the guild, that's all that really matters. They don't care if it's like, oh yeah, this is the saint of this church, he's a nice guy, but if he's like doing something that's a threat to a guild member, he'll go after him. They'll go straight after him. They're more independent in a lot of ways. Shiki, in some ways, like it comes off as a villain, which is one of the more interesting things about Eden Zero. But Haru is more of like a classic hero. Haru, easily, if you've read Rave Master, Fairy Tail, and Eden Zero, Haru, the way that you can describe each of them, if you really want to get down to like a very basic thing, Natsu's independent. Shiki's more of like he's like a weird kind of like, I want to say anti-villain in a lot of ways for Shiki. It's kind of like how you have an anti-hero. It's like, yeah, I'm a hero, but I do it by kind of like more serious kind of bad guy means. Shiki, I feel like is going to be a anti-villain, and he's going to be kind of a bad guy who does stuff by good people means. And that's just where I can see it going. But Haru is much more of like a hero. He's much more of a classical style good guy hero. And I've always really liked Haru. I think he's a really good character. I like his design. I like his swords. But I'm going to put him at A. And like I said, I really like him. He's fantastic. But the determining factor between like the last three is like, A is like, yeah, I really like this character. This character's really good. And like I think anyone should take a look. Or I think everyone should take a look at the series, take a peek and, get your feet in there. Obviously, it's his first work, so it's a little bit rough at the start, but it's definitely a really good series overall. And then you have, like, S-Class, who are... The S tier is, like, these are contenders to be in my GOAT tier. A is, like, these are the trophies. S is, like, these are trophies that are also, like, one of a kind. And then you have the GOAT ones, which are, like, these are valued family treasures. These are relics. Like they're like very important just in general. To like much more than their value is way more like deeper emotional, and it's got a lot of sentimental pieces to it. That's where S kind of like plays into. I really like Haru. I think Haru is a great character. I think that Brave Master was fantastic. The only reason I wouldn't put him higher is Rave Master isn't going anymore. If Rave Master was still going, and it was kind of like Denji and Asta, where there was more to come, and you're just like, if they're only going to get better, so put them up there because they could be potentially up there. The only way that I could put Haru into S class or higher is if Hiroshima plans to do more with his hero storyline, because that's his opportunity to do stuff with Haru again. Just as a small like little fun fact. One of the things that Hiroshima regretted when he ended Rave Master is there was nothing. So there was nothing in the story really that he could have expanded upon if he wanted to do more. Like when he ended Fairy Tail after when he did the Alvarez arc, his original intention at one point was that was going to be the end of the series. Like he was like, this is going to be the last arc. But obviously, like they wanted to do more. He thought of more. He used stuff that existed in the series in order to expand out like the story more. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like. He wants to lay out stuff. It's like, I don't have to continue this, but I want there to be stuff in there if I do. And I think Heroes is his opportunity to expand Rave Master out if he so chooses to. So if he does it through that, I can see that being the case. And then with Shiki's new power, being able to kind of like pull in memories across time, that maybe you can give Haru like the intelligence and knowledge and experiences of like, the main Rave Master universe Haru, and then evolve him from that and keep going. I don't know. We'll see. That's a really interesting kind of setup when it comes to the characters. So I'm gonna put him there. So the next one up, obviously, has been mentioned for. Oh yeah, let me look at some of the comments. I dislike Star Wars. I dislike Disney Star Wars. I don't like what Disney's done with it. Askin Levar. Oh, the Sternritter. What's that do with anything? Do you think Black Clover will be as long as One Piece? I mean, Tabata definitely has it in a setup to where it can be, because the first 200 and change chapters were the Elf Resurrection. It was all centered around the stuff that concluded with the Elf Resurrection arc. And the Spade War can easily go as long as that, because it's a war. All you have to do is emphasize on like different battles and make them longer, and have like you can do stuff like right now. Like you could do, oh yeah, we have to take this city to do stuff. Like maybe they have to. There's a whole arc where they have to take back the heart or the Diamond Kingdom, or defend the witches to get the witches on their side. You do like 20 to 30 chapters of that, and you just make multiple pieces, each 20 to 30 chapters, and then just connect them into like the big end game when they like get into the final big confrontation with the dark. Oh, there we go. Sorry, hiccup. With the Dark Triad and the Spade Kingdom. You could easily go that far. It really just depends on how long they let Tabata. Because Tabata said he's fine going as long as Naruto and One Piece. They just have to. They just have to not cancel him. As long as he's turning a profit, he should be good. Let's see. Have you read Real Account? I haven't read that yet. Feels like I'm the only one who likes the only one who really dislikes sci-fi. Depends on the sci-fi. It just depends on how it's presented, in my opinion. I really like. I liked old Star Wars before Disney ruined it, but obviously I like Eden Zero. I liked aspects of Samurai 8 before it got canceled. I wasn't super hyped on it, but I thought the series was all right. I liked that clearly they had ideas going into it. They weren't just winging it off the top of their heads. Do you think... I already read that one. Do you think that the best protagonist of Hiro Mishima's main journey... I'll get to that when I get there. Don't worry. I mean, obviously, Haru is in my A class. I'm not hyping Haru up too much. I like Haru, and I think that people could make him his favorite. He's not my favorite. I can understand why he would be somebody's favorite, though. Would Makima be on the antagonist tier list? That would depend on when we find out who exactly Makima is and like what Makima's plan is. The author said like it to be. I mean, yeah. How is Shiki an anti-villain and not independent hero? Because a lot of ways Shiki is depicted as a villain because he's not going around doing heroic things. He's getting roped up in things that are in some ways kind of like brought to him, or the closest like one where he's going to do something is with Hermit, when he went to go deal with Hermit and stuff. It's a lot of aspects that are not really like him just looking out to do good things. Like everything Haru did was for the sake of the world. It was for the sake of survival of humanity in the world and stopping Demon Card and preventing the end. Like he was doing it all since the start as a hero to help others. He would do whatever he could, any opportunity that came up to help somebody. Haru is way more of a hero. Shiki is like as a anti-villain because in a lot of ways he's like showing up. He's completely altering and pulling like the roots out of these places underground. Some ways he's like making them he's completely changing the way they are. I mean, then when you look at stuff like the Liga, I think a good comparison. So when Natsu fought Gajil and he beat Gajil unconscious, he beat him until he felt like they were even, and that was it. Like he got beating him and then he knocked him out and he pretty much just gave him some hits until he felt like it was good. When Shiki went against the Liga, if Pino didn't shut down his ether gear, Shiki would have beat him until he died. Shiki would have beat him to death. Shiki has very little control over his emotions. That's one of the reasons that I think really makes him different than Haru and Natsu. Like Natsu was a fiery, hot-headed guy, but there aren't really any times where he came off as like he didn't have control over himself. Shiki, the difference between Shiki and Haru when it comes to like their anger is any of them. Haru, when he's angry, he's way more calm and collected. He's way better at focusing his anger and like utilizing it to still kind of like fit his style. When Natsu's mad, Natsu is like a raging inferno, but it's one that'll get the job done and then stop. He's mad, but he's mad, but he's still in control. He's a dude's pissed off. It's like, yeah, you just picked a fight with me. I'm gonna beat you up until you know, and then it's over. Shiki is not like that at all. Shiki will
has no control over himself when he gets too angry, and he will like when you go look at the fight with Liga, he was gonna beat him to death. He was going to kill him. Shiki has very little control, if not no control, when it comes to his anger. And I don't see him. He doesn't come off like he doesn't come off as just like an independent. He comes off as like almost a villain, because he's also a criminal. They're all pretty much wanted by the government too, by that space government whose name one day I'll be able to remember. But yeah, they are also like set up as like lawbreakers, so they're also like already in a lot of ways like they're a bunch of criminals in a way, sort of. But at the same time, like I said, like Shiki is not. He doesn't has the same kind of like innocence, that like the same kind of like good guy vibes that Natsu and Haru have. But the difference between Haru and Natsu is Haru isn't like definitely like more of a hero, and Natsu is like, hey, I'm a good guy until you mess with the guild, and then I'm gonna like just, beat you unconscious and then throw you at a tree or something. But yeah, not sure why Natsu is S tier or Asta. I've talked about it. I talked about why Asta is S tier. So this is a character opinion related thing. If you want to know why I put Asta in S tier, go back and listen to when I did the portion of the video on him. How is Shiki in 2? Okay, read that. Haven't read Glypner. Yeah, but I'm not caught up. I'm like 20 chapters in, I think. No Aki or Monster. No Aki or Monster Hunter Shiki. Well, I wouldn't put I'm not gonna put 2 volume characters in there when there's not a lot to talk about them. I mean, there's like, what would I really put for Aki? I mean, Aki for Monster Hunter, he's got a cool design. He's got a really cool design, and he's got somewhat of character kind of build to him. But there's not a lot because it's only 2 volumes. Only 2 volumes, and it's not like the only reason I put Andy on here is because in the 20 chapters we've had on Undead Unluck, you actually got a lot of story behind it. You've got a lot of like what we know about like him and interactions with him and Izumo. There's a lot enough to put him on there, and he's got enough potential to like rack him up there as well. Favorite Sternritter? Favorite Sternritter? I think if I had to pick Maste Masculine, Bazby, and I like Giselle. I don't know. I know that like Giselle is like the dangerous trap zombie, but I always thought that Giselle was just a fun character in general. I did like the weird mystery around that character, and I thought they were pretty fun. Thoughts on Webtoon? I mean, Webtoons can vary. Webtoons, I think, can vary in like how much like their style way more than manga, because you can get one that just looks pretty normal, and then it's like a boring series, or it's like, hey, this is a very similar art style, but it's like pretty much a hentai. Yeah, the Koreans are a different style. I don't read a lot of Korean series just because I haven't found a lot that I liked. Why did you put Boruto in C tier? Well, scroll back in the stream, and I explain why I put all of them in their tiers when I do them. Asta, Atem, Judai, Yuma are all my goats. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. So let's go to the next one. Ichigo Kurosaki, Substitute Soul Reaper, main character of Bleach. I really like Ichigo. I think Ichigo design, he's got, out of the 3 main characters, like the 3 big Shonen Jump main characters, between Naruto, and we haven't done Naruto yet, or we haven't done Luffy yet, but Ichigo has the best design out of all of them, for sure. Like, even his, like, base one, where he's just got the normal, like, is it kimono or shihakusho? I don't remember what it's called. He's got the base one, but he's got the oversized Zanpakuto, to when he got, like, the kind of, like, that desert outfit, and he had the Zangetsu. Like, everything for Ichigo, I think, worked really well when you saw it kind of just go from step to step of, like, his different forms. I thought his motivation was good. I thought he was really fun to see in the story. I like Ichigo a lot. The only complaint I would kind of give towards Ichigo is he didn't have a lot of techniques. And I get, like, obviously, like his Zanpakuto did something specific. Like, it absorbed spiritual energy and can, kind of shoot it out. But I was, like, always wondering why he didn't use it in various ways. Like, maybe instead of, like, the blade, he did because he did the AoE one once, where he just, like, he would plunge it into the ground, and it kind of, like, made that big shockwave of spiritual energy. Stuff like that, actually, I'm kind of confused of why you didn't see more of in his whole kind of story. Like, why do you get to see more of him doing more, like, super basic moves? But anyway, Ichigo, he's got a really good design. I like his fights. I think he's got one of the most iconic fights in anime, his fight with Ulquiorra. I mean, it's Ichigo. I would be I'd be giving him disrespect if I didn't give him at least somewhat of a high rank, at least somewhat of a respectful spot for Ichigo as a character. So I'm gonna put him at A. I really like Ichigo. I think he's a solid character. I don't think there's any real negative aspects about him, other than like certain like small things, like, oh, we never really get to find out what his Zanpakuto does, like his true Zanpakuto. We never actually got to get to see what it does. We don't really know what exactly like his ability is. We just know that Yash thought it was kind of like risky to keep him up. It was like potentially dangerous. Other than that, though, like what other thing was there kind of really to go off of when it came to like things to not like about Ichigo? Like outside of that, I thought Ichigo is a pretty good character, really solid. Yeah, I like Ichigo. I think Ichigo's awesome. Favorite female? Look, man, I'm this isn't a tier list of fights. I had a problem with how he never had. So the thing about him not having a goal is a bad argument towards Ichigo, because he did have a goal. His goal was to protect the people directly in front of him, because he was a guy, like his whole like story of like when he was a kid was, what changed him is he wasn't strong enough to protect his mom, and his mom died, and he was there and just saw it all happen. So he wanted to just to protect people close to him. That's a really understandable, really kind of basic thing, but it's a normal human like want, and like it's a normal human goal to have. He doesn't have to be like, I want to be, head Soul Reaper. Ichigo never had to be that guy, because that was not what the story was about. It was never about that when it came to Ichigo. Main character, Sword and Solar Dragon Waves actually based on Ichigo and the Getsuko Tensho. It's always good to have inspiration and shit. Inuyasha, I don't know, he was just somebody I thought of when I was thinking about main characters to put him on there. But it's everyone's goal to protect their friends. How many of them have very specific character reasons why? Like Ichigo as a child, he was like very, very attached to his mom. He was a little bit of a wimp. And when it came down to it, he watched his mom die because he wasn't strong enough to protect her. And now he has two sisters who don't even know what their mom is like, because like Ichigo puts that on himself. Like he blames a lot of that stuff on himself. And that was one of the big things about it, and why he was constantly always trying to get stronger and save people and help those around him. That's why like one of the lines when he mentions like his the job of why a big brother is born before the younger siblings is because they have to become strong, or they have to be at a spot where they become aware they have to be strong and protect them. And it's all about like protection for him. That's why his name means, like his name like translates, what is it, like number one guardian? His name literally translates into something about it. Like, come on. Denji kind of protects his friends, but like he's already said like before, he's like, I don't know if I'd care that much. Inuyasha, so Inuyasha's character, Inuyasha, I like, but I never have like too high of opinions on. I've gotten through the series, but I've only done it once, and I feel like if I went through and paid, and maybe like gave it a lot more attention to detail, and gave more some credit of stuff, because like when I finished the series, I had watched most of it like multiple times, because they were just like, it was the anime up until, I don't remember where the anime ended originally, and then it did that final arc, the final act of Inuyasha. I don't remember the anime ended before that, because it was like years. I remember when I first started watching it, I think I was in middle school, and I remember talking to some dude about it at school. And that's one of the reasons I remember like when it was on, it was lots of reruns, because there wasn't anything to go off. So I watched all these reruns like constantly, and then I just got on the main one. But I feel like if I just watched them all together, or read the manga like in one go, then it would blend a lot better. I don't know. I don't have anything crazy to say about Inuyasha. I like his design. I think he's got a really good design. I think he's got a good story. I'm gonna put him in B, just because, like I said, he's got good aspects to him. I think he's got a good story. I like the stuff with Kikyo and Kagome and his brother and his dad. When he went and got, I still remember when he went and got Tetsaiga. Like that was, I think when it came to like a point in my life where I didn't have like I couldn't stream. I didn't have internet. I didn't have like Dish or anything, and so I just had normal cable. So it was just whatever was on at the time. When they did the reruns of like them going to get Tetsaiga and like when he cuts off Sesshomaru's arm. I always watched that episode. Anytime that was on, I'd want to watch it. And when it got near those episodes, because I knew episodes that happened leading up to it, I always watched because I was making sure that I didn't miss those. And I did really like that. I think it was pretty good. And especially, like, it had actually one of the better slice of life style series, now that I think about it. Because then, like, one of its slice of life, like, goofs was obviously you had this dude from, like, feudal Japan, like, coming forward in the future and, like, being around in modern day, and, like, you gotta hide it and stuff. There was a lot of fun, like, slice of life episodes when it came to Inuyasha too. Yeah, so, ooh, Judai, Jaden, Yuki, main character Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Slifer Red, the big slacker running the elemental heroes is Neo-Spatians, and the Supreme King. Jaden is... I love Jaden Scare. Jaden is one of my favorite main characters as well. Like, Jaden is awesome. His design is great. He was part of, like, the era in Yu-Gi-Oh! That really ushered in archetypes instead of just kind of, like, having a couple cards that worked well together and then just a bunch of cards that did a bunch of support. Like, okay, like, more for the most part, Yugi didn't have, like, an archetype. He had, like, his Dark Magician cards. It was more of, like, a card. He would have, like, a card and then, like, 2 or 3 cards that went with it and then a couple support pieces. There was no archetype. And then Jaden rolls in, and then Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, he's got the elemental heroes, and then later he gets the Neo-Spatians. He's got, like, this really cool, he was part of this really cool period that entered archetypes, and I like archetypes, but I also like the original style of just kind of, like, finding cards that work well together. But I really like Jaden. I think his design is great. I like his Karibo head. I think a lot of people miss out, like, more important parts of the story if you only watch the dub, because the dub just kind of ends off after Season 3, does nothing with Season 4, so you don't get to see brooding, upset Jaden all alone in this Slifer Red dorm. And it's just, like, early parts of the series, too, when he didn't believe all the magic stuff. He just wanted to have fun and duel and go to the academy, and he's constantly getting roped in all these serious situations. I love Jaden. Jaden is, again, one of my favorites. I love Jaden's character. He's one of my boys. There's never been a point where I've been like, Jaden, or if I don't see someone, like, hyping up Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, I don't go check out what they're saying. Watch scenes. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Even in the dub when they make stuff silly and censored, I still think they do it in a way that adds more character to it. So there's, like, that one dude, like when they do accents, when that's like, this guy is, like, in his story, he's like, there's that guy, he's like a French gambler, but obviously in the Japanese, he's just a Japanese guy. But when in the English version, that he speaks English, but they give him, like, a French accent. And stuff like that I always loved about, like, Yu-Gi-Oh's dub, where they have a little bit of fun with it. Like, what is it? One of Jesse's cards, the elephant. It just sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just a dude doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation. They do a lot of fun stuff with the dub that I do really like that about the Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm not doing Natsu vs. Melius, man. This isn't about fights. I keep telling you this. Inuyasha's cool. Yeah, he's not bad. Naruto was all alone for all of his childhood, wants to preserve what little connections he had. Luffy was abandoned in the jungle by his grandpa. No, he would leave him to make him stronger. But Naruto had his own things. Ichigo had his own things. But neither of them had some, like, way deeper rooted reason. Look at Luffy. Luffy was there, watch Ace die, and then, like, had this whole thing about not letting his friends, like, die again, not letting anyone close to him die again. And then the second they get out of the time skip, he goes for the most dangerous islands possible because they're the most adventurous, they're most fun. He still risks people. There was no real kind of similar situation. There was no similar kind of, like, situation where it's like, I lost someone really close to me, and then that becomes, like, a huge driving factor in who they are as an individual. That didn't happen with Luffy. But obviously that happened with Ichigo and his mom. Like, he wants to keep these people safe, and he blames the fact that his mom's not alive because of it. His dad doesn't have a wife, his sisters have no real memory of their mother, and Ichigo blames himself for it. And he doesn't want that kind of, like, situation to happen with anybody else. Like, Ichigo, like, his way that he handles it is very different than what other people are doing. It's kind of like with Golem Hearts. If you read that series, like, it unfortunately got canceled, but I still really miss that series. The main character's goal was essentially the same, like, super generic goal. It's like, I wanted to be #1. But because he was a golem, it was because of the fact that his dad really wanted to be the #1 golem maker. But he was actually bad at it. His son was pretty much a freak accident where he had this sentient, like, self-aware golem that can make other golems and do golem stuff.
he wanted to become number one, so by proxy, his dad for making him was number one. The main character's goal was pretty much to put himself at number two, to make his dad more elevated and to help his dad achieve his dreams. The same thing with Ichigo. You're taking a very standard kind of like trait because it's something that people have. You're adding a lot more backstory to it, and you're using it to drive his character forward. And it's way more focused on who he is. That's the difference. What's your series? Oh, he's not telling me. Oh, yeah, dude, I love Jaden. Jaden's awesome. Jaden's got a great one. I feel like his bias is coming stronger. No, I'm telling you, man. You gotta understand. You can't just be like, oh, he's got the same goal. But how has it affected them? How has it played in the story? How is it used? What do these events do for the character in the future? What happens to their character that these events and this part of the story and this aspect of who they are, how does that change them over time? Luffy, when was the last time Luffy had anything that had to do with like the death of Ace and the fact that he was right there and Ace died in his arms and whatnot, and he wasn't strong to stop him? He doesn't. He very rarely has any form of like recollection towards the fact he saw his brother die. And even like his brother he just found was alive, he doesn't even talk about. Like Sabo, he just found out Sabo like was alive finally after what, like 10 years or something. He doesn't talk about him. We didn't even find out about Ace until like 200 something chapters into the story because Luffy didn't talk about him. Like Luffy's ties aren't treated the same as like Ichigo's or like a lot of other main characters, because even though they exist in the series, Oda doesn't focus on that, because Oda's are much more focused on like certain world events and world building. Those are the things that he puts way more effort into than like Luffy as a character. You got to keep that in mind, because they can have the same goal and same trait, but which one of them is more emphasized? Which one is more kind of set up? Look at Asta and Deku. Both of them were born without powers in their world, and they were discriminated against for it. Deku got bullied for not having a power. Asta didn't have magic in a world where magic mattered. When was the last time in Deku's story it was ever, at any point rather, when was the last time you heard anything about him being like, oh yeah, because I had no power, I'm doing this, this, and this for people? No, that's not who he is. That's not the point of his story. Asta's is a driving factor of his story, because the stuff that that drove his decision stories at now are because of like how he was treated growing up and the life he had to live growing up and what he experienced, and then wants to help others because of it. They can have a similar trait and a similar kind of like point in their story, but it's completely different when the authors handle it in completely different ways. They can literally just be like, oh yeah, they both care about their friends, but how does that play out in the story? What does the author do differently? You know, what do the characters do differently as they go? So anyway, let's get to the next one. Jonathan Joestar, the first one, because all three JoJo's lined up. I've only gone through the first three parts. I'm not too hyped on Jonathan, but I like him. I think he's got a pretty fair design. He's got a lot of memes. He was the first JoJo. He was the guy to start it all. I'll put him at B. Oh, let's get out of A. Get out of A. He's cool. Like I said, I like his power. I think his design is pretty solid. He was back at the point where JoJo, before it kind of got absurd out of hand. Like, it was crazy at the start, but obviously not to like where it's at from art. I think everything around I think part 3 is where, from what I've seen, everything started to get really crazy. And then obviously JoJo nowadays is super wild. But this was back at the start when it's like looking at Dragon Ball and then looking at Dragon Ball Super, and like, man, it used to be so much more simple. I mean, JoJo's like, yeah, we used to fight vampires in an alleyway, and then you look at, like, current JoJo, and it's like a constant game of 4D chess with, like, dudes with crazy powers that, like, oh, what's a dude who's, like, opens zippers and stuff, and guys who, like, can erase points in time or something. You got way more odd power setups and stuff, and a way more weird world. I'm going to put Jonathan, I'm going to put him in A, and the reason that is, I know I've only seen 3 parts of JoJo, but from what I've seen of the other characters, I feel like I don't think any of them I'm going to place above Jonathan. It's because I think Jonathan hits a lot of very fun marks. Like, he's got that blend of funny and yet badass that I think works the best for any of the JoJos, at least that I've seen. Because he's got a legit bunch of really funny parts that he just does, and memes. He's got a really cool design, especially when he puts that headpiece on. Was that when that dude, was it Caesar, dies? Yeah, he's before the stands back when Ripple was a thing. I really liked him, and I think he's got the most interesting kind of like weird set story that's not going to just be another thing with Dio and whatnot. And I know there's obviously other characters, but I think his was cool that like it was a sequel. It was the direct sequel, like it was the second one, but it had nothing to do really with a lot of the stuff that happened in part 1, and then stuff from part 1 came back around for part 3. Johnny Young Bosch's voice. Oh, did he do Jonathan? Anyway, next is Jotaro. I'm going to be quick. I'm going to rip off the Band-Aid with this one, and I'm putting him a B. I like Jotaro. I think he's cool, but that's about as much as I think about him. Like, he's badass and stuff, but he's like Zebra from Toriko. He's badass, but like outside of being like, yeah, he's a pretty intense guy. Outside of that, I don't really have anything to say about him. Like, I don't have any like crazy stuff. Like, his character never kind of caught my interest. His character never really did all. He's got a really cool design. I'll give him that. And he's got the iconic hat that kind of weirdly blends in with his hair. I don't know. He was never my JoJo. Like, when it comes down to it, and I'm sure that I know some people really like Giorno, and there's probably like people who be like, I feel like Joseph being your favorite JoJo is like, it's like the most common one that isn't taken like as seriously in the JoJos. I bet like the JoJo elitists would be like, that's like as like straightforward like JoJo casual as it is liking Jonathan as or Joseph as your favorite. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty casual when it comes to JoJo. I haven't watched anything past part 3. Kenichi is for me. Oh, there we go. This is a guy right here. This is hard. So it's between the two, and I'm gonna put him A, and the reason is because I'm gonna go back on it. The only reason he's not S, like I said, S is a reserved spot for essentially, it's like A with the potential to become GOAT, because the difference between S and A is like pretty much people who are still going and still have more to do. So with Kenichi, I love Kenichi. I thought History's Strongest Disciple Kenichi was a fantastic series. I think it does really good. It's getting this character who started out looking like a spineless wimp, getting him trained up, getting him stronger, getting him more powerful, getting him further throughout the story, further involved in all these crazy martial arts like conflicts. It's a fantastic series. And oh man, I gotta drink some water. I said like some weird dry spell in my throat real quick. Yeah, I just realized I've been talking for like almost 2 hours without drinking any water. My throat was getting super dry. Anyway, Kenichi, fantastic character. I love his martial art style. I really like how they explain like his OP thing as a character. And if you haven't read it, because main characters always have something OP about them. They always have some trait that's like, oh, that's your main character thing. The thing about Kenichi, like Kenichi Shirahama, man, the thing about him is because he's not a natural fighter. You have all these characters where it's like that are in these martial arts like situations because they're natural born fighters and stuff. They're talented. But Kenichi got there from pure hard work and stuff. So he doesn't have this natural fighter aura. So he can just kind of like, he'll get in like a fighting stance with the guy, and it's like whenever they make the first move, they're just waiting for it. And then he'll just drop the stance and like walk up to somebody all casual, like just some random guy on the street. And it's because these guys are so trained and so like having this like fighting style mindset. To them, they don't pay attention to him. It's like they don't see him. He like goes off their radar completely. And he could literally just like do that, walk up to somebody, and then like get in like a big attack. And it's really cool. I always really liked that for him. I love Kenichi. This is a character I wanted to put in there because I think I have three female main characters. Four, because I have Yumiko, Ruby, Medica. I think I have Medica. Don't I? Don't I have Medica? Did I not put No, I have her. I have her in there. And then I have this one. This is Kagyu. Is it Jun? I'm trying to remember exactly how to pronounce her last name. Kagyu Junbi from Nejimaki Kagyu. I wanted to put her on there because this series isn't really talked about a lot. But I flexed it at somebody today, so I'm hoping they picked it up. But I've seen a lot of series where they'll have like a female main character, and they're either not very good, or they're in a way that they're way more female reader oriented. And I think if you've ever read this series, it is what is this? Kenichi's underrated. Yeah, Kenichi's underrated. Kenichi's fantastic. Did I see the new chapter Black Clover? I did. The author of high school History Strong Disciple is another work called Kimi wa 008. I know he tried to do a different series with like 3 main characters. I don't know how well it went. But anyway, Nejimaki Kagyu It's like this weird. The way I would describe it is, it's like if you if you took a selective crew of like girls in that read anime and manga that actually, like, it wasn't just like they just watched and were in stuff because it's popular. Like, they were really into like battle stuff, but they also wanted like to be like, why are there no girl kind of main characters? The whole premise, it's like a big like battle series, but all the characters are pretty much female, and they're done in a way that it doesn't come off as annoying, and it doesn't come off as you've probably seen some of like the Western comics in the last couple of years. When they try and do strong girls, it comes off as more of like annoying, like angry feminists, instead of just like, yeah, they're just badass chicks. And like the like almost all the fighters are all women, and they're like the main character. It's funny as the main character, like there'll be parts where it comes off as like a shoujo, like some romance series, and then the next panel it's like some bloody brawl of like her fighting this other girl. Like there's this like sword chick, and they're in this like intense battle out behind their house. But she's got a really cool design. I like her powers because her whole setup is like she essentially is like this spiral fighter, and she uses like spinning motions to attack. And like the way that it's this, like when they get into her fighting stance, she has this one for her style, kind of like, you see like people getting like a stance for like an animal. Hers is the snail, and it's like this calm, weird kind of like defensive, offensive kind of setup. It's really interesting. It's definitely a really fun series. And like you find out like a lot of stuff. Like she essentially goes and becomes like a super martial artist to defend this guy who the male lead. His power is like he has, I don't know, it's a power. He has this trait essentially that like girls just get a thing for him when they meet him, and that gets him into a lot of trouble. So the main character, she goes and like learns this fighting style and these martial arts skills in order to kind of like protect him. It's a very entertaining series. It's got a lot of really good art and a lot of really good characters. I would highly recommend it. I'm gonna put her in. I want to say B, but I'm gonna put A because I'm only at like 100 chapters out of like 300 chapters in the series, and I've interacted with the author too. He's pretty cool, but I know there's a lot more to come, and I think right now they're about to enter a new arc, and they just had a really big character part in the story that I'm where I'm at, and I thought it was fantastic. I think she's a really good character. I highly recommend her. Have I read Siren? Yeah, I wish Siren actually got like a normal conclusion instead of that rushed mess that it turned into. That was very unfortunate. Super unfortunate what happened. Yeah, I would recommend Nejimaki Kagyu. It's really good. Kirito. Let's put him in D. Let's just go straight forward. Let's put him in D. I don't like Kirito. I don't think he's very interesting. All the parts in his story that I would have liked to see get skipped over. He's not a very intelligent kind of guy. I don't think he's very fun. I don't even really like his design. I don't think his design is very good. There's no point in his story that I've ever cared about him as a character. I've gone through the whole first part, like in the Sword Art Online. I've gone through the Elf one. I've tried to watch the Gun one. I don't like it. I've never liked Kirito. There's never been a point in my life where I've been like, man, I really hope Kirito, does this and this. I'm just like, I don't know why I'm watching this. I've never been a fan. I've never been a fan of Kirito. I don't like him. I mean, especially like, his design is super bland. Like, he's just a dude in a black coat. But he's like a plain-looking guy. Because he literally looks like some guy who is cosplaying. But he's got, like... The way I describe it is... So, I've been to conventions, and I've cosplayed a couple times, but not that many times. I think I've, like, maybe, like, 2 or 3 times out of the times I've gone to conventions. And I'm like, man, I kind of wish that I bought... And, I wish I came as something. And... They'll usually have, like, certain outfits and cosplay stuff there, and one of the things they always have is, like, the Organization 13 outfit from Kingdom Hearts. And you can tell there's, like, a set group of people. There's always people that will buy cosplay stuff there and then just wear it there. So it's like, well, I didn't have an outfit showing up, but I'm going to have one now. So you'll just see random people running around in, like, Organization 13 coats that they bought there that all look like mid-level quality, and there's, like... Yeah, it's like $100 or something. It's supposed to last you a couple times, and then it's going to start falling apart. It's not like a really good, high-quality piece of memorabilia. Yeah, I don't like Kirito. He's lame. I don't think he's interesting. I don't think there's anything about him that I've ever been too interested in. He's D to me. He's 100%. And here we have the next one up. Lelouch Lamperouge, and originally named Lelouch V. Britannia. founder and CEO of the Black Knights, 99th Emperor of the Realm, and former 11th Prince of the Holy Throne of Britannian Empire. A man who had everything, threw it away, went in, he was in dirt, dead bodies, like destroyed battlefields, and came from that, rose up a group of rebels in like a van until he eventually got his own country, and then eventually united the world after becoming the villain of the entire planet. You have one of the most badass, well strategically developed, and human motherfuckers that have ever walked out on like an animated screen. Lelouch v Britannia is fucking awesome. I love Lelouch. I think he's amazing. Like, Code Geass is such a good story. Another series also that Hiroshima really likes. It. Great, fantastic. I think those. I'm hoping he doesn't like the last season of Game of Thrones. I know he liked Game of Thrones. I don't think he'd like the last season, but Code Geass is fantastic. I love Code Geass. It's one of the only mech series I've ever gotten into, and I've always really liked Lelouch's character, and I've only liked him more since going back and rewatching the series again and again. Lelouch is fantastic. Lelouch is definitely one of my favorite characters. 100%. 100%. And the fact that he was willing to die for everybody was great in order to do what he could for the world. And then you have now the new line, like they had the new movie and they're talking about doing more stuff, is you have this character who they're able to kind of do an alternate timeline where he lives, and then you're going to be able to see what he does now in this world. And I'm super hyped for more. I love Lelouch's character. Lelouch is fantastic. Oh yeah, another new series. I remembered I put MASH in there. Luffy, second member so far of the the HST, the Holy Shonen Trinity main characters. I don't think I've been a fan of Luffy since East Blue. Maybe, or actually early Grand Line. I think once he got to Skype, I think I started to lose a little interest with him, and then kind of went back up, and like stuff with CP9. Definitely the time skip. The stuff I like about Luffy, like I like his powers. I think he's got an interesting design. But like I think one of the concerns people have brought up recently that I've seen have a very valid point, and it's one of the things I don't like about Luffy is you have One Piece's world. I think is the best part of the series. I'm not a huge One Piece guy, but I won't deny the fact that it's got really good world building. And when you have a world building like that, like that's the biggest I think feature of the series, and the main character never really has much to kind of like in concerns of what happens in the world, all the big events. There's never really a point in time where Luffy's like, oh man, this happened, we need to go over there and join in and prevent this thing from happening. Like if you saw like, oh, the Marines are attacking the Revolutionaries Island, and Luffy's like, he realizes like all the stuff, that's my dad and all this stuff, and like he remembers, like if he remembered when Akainu killing Ace, and he's like, I don't want that to happen to my dad, you go do that. Stuff like that, I think would work. I think it would do really well. But the fact that Lelouch, I liked when Luffy punched Bellamy. That was a really cool scene. But that had more to do with like this guy who was like a huge, he was more of an issue with him that came in at that point in those events. But the big world events never really affect Luffy. Luffy doesn't take a lot of attention and really pays attention to like a lot of what's going on when it comes to like the big world. And that's one of the things. Oh yeah, but I don't like that. I think that's dumb. I'm not a fan of that. Because like, when it comes to like Goku is a character that, for the most part, really just wants to fight. He wants to battle, and he wants to do these things. But he still pays attention to stuff that's going on. He still, like, when they were in like the Tournament of Power, he still paid attention to like the events that were transpiring. He knew the weight of the things that were happening, and he knew that they had to win. Luffy doesn't have a lot of like attention to where things are in the world, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. I'm tempted to put him at C. I'm gonna put him at B because I think Luffy does his job. I think he does what he's supposed to. I think he's got some cool powers. I think he's got a cool fighting style. I'm not a huge fan on his character overall. I like what's going on right now to where it's more of like a pirate raid that he's leading, and he's acting like a boss. He's acting like the fact that he's in charge of a was it 5,000 and something like
alliance of pirates, he's acting like that. He's acting like the front runner. He's the guy leading the charge. I like that, but I'm not a huge fan of Luffy. I've never been a huge fan of Luffy. I mean, look at Marineford. I mean, like the events of Marineford, Luffy they didn't affect Luffy almost at all. Even his brother dying, what does that do for him? What happened between Luffy witnessing his brother dying and being separated from his crew for 2 years? What has that done for him at all? Anything. Nothing. I mean, that's fine. It doesn't have to. Maybe some people obviously like that. This is my personal take on it. I'm not a fan of that. Look at, for instance, that I'll just get to it really quick. Look at when Natsu lost Igneo. Natsu, like, for a while it became about just getting stronger and getting revenge. And then it became more about protecting those around him and not letting that happen again. To the point where he was like, I don't want to kill people, but I know the severity of the situation, and if I have to, I will. You had an event that took this character who was very hot-headed and goofy, and it matured him a bit. He was still himself, but there were still points where he's like, listen, I have to be real about what's going on. I have to be real about these things. And then, like, when you look at even when Future Lucy died in the Grand Magic Games, anytime something bad happens even though it wasn't Lucy, he still essentially witnessed her die. And so any point after that, he constantly, when they get in dangerous situation, he goes to try and defend her because he doesn't want that to happen. He lost Lucy. Now he doesn't want to lose the one that's like directly like adjacent to him. That's like very important to him. He wouldn't want that. That doesn't happen for Luffy. That's why I'm not a fan of Luffy. The only reason I'm putting Luffy in B is because he's got a good design, and I like what's going on right now. If we didn't have the like recent current chapters and Luffy wasn't like doing the whole raid on Kaido's Island, I would have put him in C. Because I'm not a fan of what Oda's doing with his character overall. I don't think it's as interesting. He wanted to grow stronger, that's why he developed Gear 4. But that's it. That's it. It's just to get stronger so he can become Pirate King. The events that happened, his brother dying in front of him, literally bleeding out like in his lap, didn't really do anything other than he got stronger. And then recently you had, like I said, an opportunity. His dad's island got attacked. What did that do? Like, his dad was in danger of being attacked by potentially the guy who killed his brother. Is Luffy going to do anything to that? I mean, if nothing happens, Luffy is essentially the same guy. There's nothing really that different about like what he's at. Again, look at the fact that when he was fighting Hody Jones, and he's like, he's not going to let anybody in his crew or close to him die. And then he goes and the first thing he picks when going to another island is the most dangerous one. He intentionally picks the most dangerous one. And then people get split up. Characters in a lot of positions should have died. I mean, look at right now. If it wasn't for the fact that Big Mom is a complete joke, Chopper would have been eaten. If Big Mom was treated properly with her rank, Chopper would be dead right now. 100%. The only reason that she hasn't caught and eaten Chopper is because Big Mom is a joke. And Luffy's not doing something to protect those around him. He's letting people just kind of free roam. And there was no real change in who he was. But he doesn't seem to really care too much about Ace or Sabo. He didn't talk about Ace for, like 200 chapters in the story. He barely talked about him after that. And then when he died, what changed about him? And then when you get to Sabo, you found out Sabo was alive. What does that do for him? Nothing. Like, it was just like, hey, Sabo's alive. What has changed from Luffy finding out one of his brothers is alive? What? Nothing. Yeah, Big Mom is a joke. If it wasn't for the fact that Oda treats Big Mom like a comedic gag character, she would have eaten Chopper, 100%. She would have eaten him. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Just because he acts like Roger, just means I wouldn't like Roger. This is my personal opinion list. If you like how Luffy's handled, that's your opinion. I'm not a fan of it because I don't like the fact that nothing really does anything for Luffy when it comes to the world. And what happens around him doesn't seem to affect him that much, where it should. Like I said, Ace's death did not much. So MASH, I'm going to move on, because MASH is an easy one. I like MASH. I think he's fun. I'm going to put him in C, just because I don't know why I added him, considering he only has like 10 chapters. I'm going to put him in C, because he's good. He's not great. He's fun. He's borderline B. He's borderline B right now. Actually, I kind of want to put him at B. I'm going to put him at B. Because even from what we've got, I think it's been pretty well. I think he's had a pretty fun run, even in the short span of time that he's been in the series, to be perfectly honest. I think his... Can I move these? Oh, shit. No, fuck. Move that back down. I was wondering if I could make him bigger, because if I'm gonna have like a bigger position. I don't know, it's fine. It's fine. Anyway, Medica Kurokami. I'm not reading Two Piece. I'm just not a fan of Luffy. I'm not saying anything of like, oh yeah, Luffy did this and that's not what happened. I'm saying this is what happened with Luffy, but I wasn't a fan of that direction. You can like it. It's the same thing in my opinion of like Deku getting, what was it, 7 quirks? I'm not a fan of that, but some people are. And it works with the story. That doesn't mean I have to like a decision. It's a personal opinion of how I would have liked it to go or how I think the character was handled. Personal opinion. 100% personal. Medica Kurokami. Can I put more people into B? Will it run out? Like, let me see Meliodas really quick. Okay, it'll extend. Okay, where's Medica? Medica Kurokami, she's a really weird one, because you have to understand the intent of the character. Natsu versus Meliodas, sure. Natsu will win. There you go. I told you this isn't a versus stream. Just because you ask a million times, I guess a million times that I'm gonna answer. But like, that's not the theme, man. Medica Kurokami. Main character, Medica Box. Very weird, because it's like half satirical of Shonen. I like Medica. I've been thinking about it, and I get like, she's like pretty much a Mary Sue, but that's 100% the point. That's 100% the point of who she was supposed to be and her bullshit power, and that's like how she was pretty much perfect. Like, that was the point. But I think she's a solid character, because when I was thinking back about like her in general, I thought she was actually pretty good. Not great, but fun. I like her design. I like her backstory. I think it's very nice. Like her first interaction with was it Zenichi? Is that his name? The main lead or the male lead? I think she was in some cool fights. There were some nice flexes. I liked the weird way they ended the series. Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty solid one. Meliodas can't. Meliodas? How is Meliodas beat Natsu? What does he do? Full counter's not going to work. Revenge counter's not going to work. He's not immortal anymore. His magic won't get burned by what Natsu has. Natsu's generally just more powerful than him. He has higher AoE. He's physically stronger. Natsu has more combat experience. The second Meliodas loses a weapon, he can't use full counter or revenge counter anymore. Or vanish counter. And Natsu can just melt his sword. I mean, Luffy, what is he going to do? The biggest thing that he had was his immortality that he doesn't have anymore. He's not going to do anything. Look at like the biggest attack. The biggest attack at his level was he's Demon King level. He's at level with his father. An attack that would have destroyed Britannia, a small country, destroyed the Demon King. Somebody Meliodas' level. That attack is tiny in the fairy tale world. Britannia's size is like 300 something, I think, miles. It's barely bigger than Galuna Island. It's not very big. It's small. It's a small island, or a small country. This, like, if you look at it, people have measured it, because it's based off of the real Britannia. It's, Britannia, the place that once was Britannia, at least. I don't think it's still Britannia, but you know what I mean. And it's the same size. It's like 300 something kilometers. I don't remember if it's kilometers or miles, like north to south. It's like 1/20th the size of Fiore, which is the baseline set for Etherion, which is so much below Natsu right now, it's not even close. It's not even close. More combat experience. Meliodas was what kind of other like big combat? His fights were all super basic. He has less shown fights. If you want to say age, sure, I guess, but him one-shotting fodder isn't a battle. He's not. What is he gonna do? What does he possibly have against him? And the fact a lot of his abilities are dependent on his sword, which Natsu can break or melt. What does he do? What does he do? Nothing. What does he possibly do? Keep that in mind. The whole country, something that would have destroyed Meliodas at his level, is 1/20th the size of Fiore, which is base Natsu. Base Natsu is at a level with Etherion, which would destroy Fiore, which is 20 times bigger than an attack that killed the Demon King. That's baseline Spriggan level. And Natsu in base is able to one-shot Spriggan level people. I'm just putting that out there. And before I even say it, full counter's not going to do shit. Natsu's already taken back his fire at double strength, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't affect him. Anyway, Medica. I like Medica. I think she's solid. I think she's a pretty alright character. I think she's a pretty I'd put her like a little bit above average. B. She's pretty good. She's fun. She's not great. She had I like the part where they emphasize that she's the main character, and you have to erase her main character power in order to defeat her in something because she only wins because she's the main character. They did a lot of fun stuff with Medica Box, and I do like that about the series. So I will give Medica that kind of credit. Next up is the guy we're talking about right now, Meliodas. Natsu's way more physically strong. Like it might be easy to look past that because Fairy Tail doesn't have a lot of just straight physical strength feats. But when you look at Ikusa Tsunagi, whose physical strength was as high as he was, it wasn't some magic spell blast. It was literally just him dropping a gigantic sword, splitting a mountain, and then further gashing out the land all the way to the horizon. And his arm physically had to be strong enough in order to handle that. Obviously, look at something like early Deku trying to use 100%. So his physical strength is enough to withstand that, not to one-shot him. Natsu's physical strikes and whatnot are heavier than those dudes' attacks. Next up, Meliodas. I've mentioned before in the videos I did on Meliodas, I have some very nice things and some very bad things to talk about Meliodas. So the things, I'll start with the bad things, so I'll get the negative parts out of the way, so we can end on some more positive things. The things I didn't like about Meliodas are some of the reasons why I don't like a lot of Korean series is because it's both destructive and it's physical force because it's done through someone's physical strength. It's both. It's physical strength, or it's destructive capability done through physical strength. It's not the same as something like Natsu doing a roar. It's completely different. It's not even the same thing as Natsu doing just one of his attacks because there's no extra magic clad onto it. Ikusa Tsunagi was literally just swinging a sword, and he wasn't even swinging that hard. He one hand swung a sword at the ground, and it literally was just lifting it up and dropping it. It wasn't some I'm charging all my power. It was a super basic attack for him, and he's fodder to Natsu. But anyway, Meliodas, I'll start with the negative things. So Meliodas starts out annoyingly strong in comparison to the rest of the world, and that's one of the things I don't like about a lot of Korean webtoons. There's a lot of where the main character is just broken strong from the start. I mean, look at someone like Natsu. Natsu was he was a foot soldier essentially at the start. He wasn't S-class. He wasn't anything special. He was pretty much a high-level foot soldier. Meliodas it seemed kind of like that at the start, but he's one-shotting Holy Knights at the beginning. He's toying with people like Gil Thunder, who was some of the strongest Holy Knights. And then we found out this was all without even really using a sword, got a sword, and then wasn't even using his sword, got his sword. And so and then one-shots somebody on level with Grey Demon Hendrickson. So you had him, if all he had to do was get his sword back that frickin' Merlin had, and he would have been able to one-shot the previous arc's boss. Meliodas is too strong in a lot of ways for the story to have a lot of tension. And it's one of the things, it'd be like One Punch Man if it wasn't, if Saitama didn't get lost all the time, and it was always kind of played out of the real battle is how to keep people alive until Saitama shows up. Meliodas is just too kind of, yeah. And then the Ten Commandments showed up, and then it's oh well, Meliodas' power is sealed up with the druids, and then he got it back, and then he ran a train on him, and then they all teamed up and they beat him, and then it's just oh yeah, he's unlocking his true power because he's got to erase his emotions to do that, and then he one shots Fraudrin, and then he beat Derriere and Monspiet 2v or 1v2, and he did it without even trying. That's where my issues were when it comes to Meliodas. My big issues with Meliodas are the fact that when stronger opponents show up, it's just bam, he's already jumped back ahead of them, and it's not a time skip, he got stronger. A character is here, I'm gonna give you this boost or something unlocked. It's always, every single time, it's because Meliodas isn't using his real power, and that's the thing that annoyed me more of it. Because you can have power-ups and stuff in Shonen, sure, okay, that's fine. Whether it's by experience or time skips or some training arc epiphany, sure. But when it's constantly, oh, he's only this weak because he's not using an actual sword. Oh, he's only this weak because he's not using his sword. Oh, he's not weak because, or he's only weak because he's not using his full power. Oh, he's not weak because he's not using, or because he's still shackled down by emotions. Oh, he's not weak because he hasn't been using his power all the time because he's been afraid of it. I mean, it's constantly. I mean, even in the last fight with the Demon King, he didn't even use his Demon King form. He was just running around in his just assault mode.
Like, it makes no sense. It's the same thing of like he has this assault mode, but then in the fight between Meliodas and Elizabeth against the Supreme Goddess and the Demon King, he didn't even use that assault mode. And then we found out he had a power that he can essentially like actually fight the Demon King with, but he doesn't use it. And all this stuff, it's the way that he always had something kind of like up his sleeve that he just wasn't using for reasons that I thought was dumb. I didn't like that about Meliodas. That was the biggest negative I think for him in the whole series. Power levels I think for the series were a bit of a mess. I mean, look at Merlin. Merlin, I hated the way her character was handled in a lot of ways. But there's the negatives. The positives, Meliodas' interactions with other characters are very good. Meliodas has very good interactions with his crew. That is factual. That is one of the things I really like about Seven Deadly Sins, are the interactions between the sins. I think they're done really well, and they're done in a way that it feels like they have a genuine relationship. That's one of the things I really like about the Fairy Tail crew, is a lot of their characters, when they have these interactions, they come off more of like they come off more genuine. They come off more natural. Like, I'm not gonna take jabs. I'm not gonna take any more jabs in these series because I don't want to rile people up and go on a tangent. But when you have like crews where the characters are just kind of around each other and like sometimes they meet each other, it's like it's not the same versus like, yeah, these guys have known each other for years. They're a team. They're buddies. They know all their ins and outs, and they could, it'd be one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, I got this for fucking this guy for lunch, and he's like, oh, he'll like this one, but he's allergic to those. And it's like, yeah, they're so close, they just know like certain traits and aspects about him, and they know like ways that they think or just like aspects of their being. Like Meliodas, anytime Meliodas was interacting with Elizabeth was really good, and the fact you got to see more of his emotional side. His like bromance with Bon, like how he had that kind of like silly back and forth with King all the time, and same thing with King and Bon. There's a lot of really good character interactions, I think, with those characters, and that's why I think Meliodas, and I will say, because I have been grading it I haven't made one of the factors like their powers and forms and stuff. Meliodas has great forms. That's factual. Meliodas' power-up forms look great. I don't think he's got any that look dumb. Like, he's got his base one where it's just like the cool demonic energy going over him, and then he's got like we never really saw what his Endura form is, which I'm bummed out about that, but we've seen the silhouette of it. And I'm wondering if we're ever going to get that. Maybe in the sequel. I'm wondering when that's going to get released. But Meliodas has a good design. He's got... even look at his Demon King outfit. Like, he looks sick with that white and gold. But even his Demon King form, his assault mode, Meliodas has great forms. And even his flashback form, when he had the cool kind of like collar, or like sleeveless, like popped collar outfit with that great sword, he looked great. Meliodas, in terms of design, fantastic. His powers are alright. Like, he's got like the revenge counter and full counter and stuff. Those are some pretty alright abilities. And then his dark elemental attacks, those are fine. Nothing great. I'd say his forms, definitely, though. His forms are fantastic. I really like his badass forms. His forms, I think, if his Endura form was looks good, it would be like a borderline A. I think Meliodas is good in that regard. It's kind of, let me read some of the comments and see what you guys, if any of this is towards me. You guys just watch the video. Yeah, they're arguing about stuff of like, that's like, any of the ones that are like questions people have about characters, it's like, I'm gonna get to it. I think I'm just gonna have these guys up and it's just like you throw their names around. But yeah, they're getting there. Esteros and Zeldris could have beaten him the entire 10-minute Commandments arc. No, because we knew that Escanor couldn't actually beat Meliodas. Because we found out Meliodas, like, when he had this power, he just never used. When we were in when they were in Purgatory, and the Demon King was reaching down and bringing up the fact Meliodas had this power, and then Meliodas just rips his arm off. And then we get back to the main one, and he unlocks the Demon King form, and then he doesn't even use it. And then even at the points where you say, like, oh, well, he could have beaten him at this point, that's only because at that point he hadn't gotten his full potential back. That's like saying that Gray Hendrickson could have beaten Meliodas in Chapter 1 because Meliodas didn't have he didn't have his crew, he didn't have Lost Vein, he didn't have anything at that point yet. It's one of those things that it's like, well, you can say he could have won, but that's just because Meliodas didn't go and like reobtain whatever power he wasn't using. I mean, like, look at the start. Look at literally the first arc. With Gray Demon Hendrickson, and they had to get in that big combo attack with revenge counter and everything. And then we bring in the big, what are they called? Albions. And once Meliodas gets Lost Vein back, he's able to one-shot these guys that are as powerful as Great Demon Hendrickson. If Merlin just gave him his sword, he could have ran through the first big boss. You know what I mean? Like, he could have beaten any of these guys, but he had this power that he just wasn't using for X reasons. And that's why that's the thing I didn't like about Meliodas. But Meliodas, like I said, his biggest positives are when he's interacting with other characters, because he had a generally very good interaction when it came to his crew. He doesn't use his Demon King powers against his father, so he doesn't kill Zeldris. He got him out at that point. Like, he didn't use it at all. They got him out, and then, like, when he merged with the land, he could have done it. There were multiple times where he could have done it, but he didn't. It's not the same kind of problem Goku has. Yeah, I don't really like Super very much, except for Broly. Ban could just steal physical strength. Meliodas starts to drop him. Yeah, this is another thing. Bond could have used Hunting Festival and taken down Great Demon Hendrickson at the start. Merlin could have given Bond his sacred treasure back that she just had for most of the series and gave back near the fight with the Endura. For no reason, she just gave him back at the last second so he could run through this demon that's been hyped up since like Endura were introduced. King could have dropped his Truthful Chastaful. For some, Merlin clearly could have done it since like a week later she was running hands on not a week, I think it was like a month or two, but she didn't do any power-ups, she just remembers stuff. Oh yeah, I'm actually immune to commandments, and I can just combo damage spells to the point where I can hurt people like Chandler and what was the other guy's name? Shit, it was Chandler and the dude with the mustache. Oh my god, how do I not remember that guy's name? I guess like it didn't really matter. They just like, oh, we're the original demon, and like they're the original sinner, and then immediately killed him off. Give Meliodas a solid C. I told you, I'm not gonna give him a C because he has generally good character interactions with his friends and his crew and Elizabeth and stuff. Like, his relationship with Elizabeth feels like a genuine love story, and it's not just like, it's not one of those ones where like the character like falls in love with another character and then yeah, we hook up at the end. They actually it's played out actually like you can tell they care about each other and you understand why. I think that's good, and like I said, all his forms are good. Bond does not have an unlimited range. I mean, yeah, but he could use it right next to him. Oh, are you talking about versus stuff? I'm not talking about versus stuff in here. I don't see that in Band's range. Well, the thing is, all you have to do is the Q-Stack, thank you. The thing is, like, right after Bond uses his Hunting Fest, he physically can't move anymore, so you just have to stall him out. Well, he hasn't even gotten to Natsu yet. I haven't gotten to my boy yet. Okay, so Musashi. If you have read Orient, I'm not caught up, but just based off of where I'm at, Musashi is a really solid character. He's actually really good. He's likable. He's fun. He's got a really good backstory. He's got a pretty cool main character power. I like his design. I think he's very fun as well. He's definitely a character I don't have a ton to say at the moment, but I like him. I'm going to put him in the B category. There's going to be a lot of B. B will be probably the biggest, or the most thick one. The next up is Naruto. The last of the big three. Last of the big boys. Naruto, I think, he's just one of those faces of anime and manga. Naruto is a really good character. He's fun. He's definitely got his own faults in the stories and whatnot, and he's got his own kind of problems. But overall, and I will say, I will say that his Boruto affected his rank in a positive way. So one of the things I really like about Boruto that I think is one of the key things you have to do when you do a next gen series. You have to do it. Because they also do it in UQ Holder, which is the sequel to Najima. They do it in Boruto as well. And it's when you have old characters do stuff, you have to give them super respect and have them flex like a fucking beast. There's the parts in Boruto where like when you have guys who underestimate Naruto, and when you see him actually flex because you know everything he went through, all the story that he progressed and like how powerful he is, and to see like some character underestimate and disrespect him, you want to see him just flex on somebody and just look like a monster. And that's one of it's a trope of next gen that I think every next gen needs to do, and it's one that will never get tiresome. I think that's something that everybody loves. Everybody loves seeing like some older character that's been around forever. You know, have some situation where they get to show up the young people and just be a badass. That's probably, if anything, my favorite part about Boruto for just like the world is just seeing the older characters get more shine time in a way that emphasizes that they are existent in a next gen series, but it's they can still be hyped, but not make it about them. Natsu's continental in his base form, not like total, and just his base form. Natsu's multi-country level and fairy. He's continental in base, man. Because in base form he scales off of Ethereon, and that's at the very least, and that's counting Ethereon's very least. That's not even like the possibility of like what its destruction kind of level is, or destructive attribute is, if it's not just straight. Now, is it like atomic annihilation or something? Because that would make it absurdly more powerful, or is it like vaporization or whatever? Is that for Ishiki? Wait, bro, where's Yoshida? He's not. I don't know. Listen, I can't have everybody on here. I only grabbed 53 people. I wish not to use Fire Dragon King mode with Igneal's power up action against Acnologia, not Seraph. Well, Seraph was the one he was dealing with, not Acnologia. He wanted to use it and take this guy out. Like it was a concern right in front of him because he was more concerned about protecting the people in front of him and around him. It already got worse after the pain arc. I think where it kind of get a little shaky for me was the big war at the end. I liked up until that point, like Naruto. My favorite form for Naruto is the one he got before his big cloak, when the first kind of like actual Kurama Chakra cloak, where he had like the claws coming out of it, making all the different Rasengans. I thought that was great. Okay, let me, why are all Therion attacks the same power level? Because Therion is when it reaches a certain point. When they described Therion, it's at a certain energy point. That's why Jalal was trying to utilize it in the Tower of Heaven. Anyway, let's get to Naruto. Like, more about Naruto. I think Naruto's solid. I think in terms of his attacks, I think Naruto has a pretty fair kind of like fighting style. It's not great. I like his variations of Rasengans. If he could do his ones from the movies, I think his moveset would be way cooler. But like for the most part, I'd never been a fan of Naruto's fighting style. I think his fighting style was cool, but it was never like a big hype kind of like component for me. Like, even though I'm not a huge fan of Luffy, I've always really liked Luffy's fighting style. I thought it was really cool. It's the same kind of like Ichigo. I like Ichigo, but I'm not a huge fan of Ichigo's fighting style. So, like, I'm not going to rank that aspect of him a whole lot. I think his forms are all pretty solid. I've already expressed the one I like the most for Naruto's forms. I'm going to put him in A, because I do really like what Naruto's done in the Boruto series. I like that it's connected aspect of his life while not being about him, but still, like, when you have parts where he's flexing and showing off how powerful he is, there's the fact that you know everything that he went through in order to get to where he's at, and I think that's really good. Yeah, Ichigo, I like Ichigo a lot, but his moveset is kind of lame, but he has badass power-up forms. Yeah, Zeref's fantastic. What? Naruto beats Natsu. I think right now, Naruto beats Natsu. I don't think he's going to beat Natsu in the long run, because Naruto has already reached his cap. And given to where Natsu's on the way to, like, once Natsu reaches, like, in normal normal status, like, kind of dragon god level, like, on level with, like, Acnologia and stuff, then Naruto's not going to stand a chance. Especially because all of Naruto's attacks are raw chakra-based, and Natsu can burn magic. You treat the chakra and magic the same because of energy equalization. And Naruto's essentially in a fight against him wearing gasoline-covered cloth, and, like, he's just going to get lit on fire. Like, Natsu can just burn all his attacks. But I think Naruto is stronger right now. I think Natsu will be stronger in the long run. Okay. Here we go. Here is my boy. Here's my big goat. Natsu Dragneel, the Salamander, son of Igneal, the crazy fire dragon boy, son, like member of the Fairy Tail Guild, and future dragon god in the waiting. You have the main character, ever since the boy on the train of the Fairy Tail series. I love Natsu's design. I think his design is fantastic. I love his powers. It's both badass and simple in a lot of ways. It's a fire dragon magic, but the fact that it's done through turning yourself slowly into a dragon, and the way that it's, like, originated from, like, the power itself has a good story. Like, it relates a lot into the larger scale events of the series. It's not like it's like if the whole fact that one dude within the Zero Squad invented the Zanpakuto. It's like if you took that and gave more stuff to it. It's really cool when you have like, oh yeah, we know how this power even exists, how this is all set up, the events that it all ties to, and really where it connects. I love this character. I love his story. I love how he relates to like all these other characters. I love how his story ties into theirs. I love how like everything from previous arcs like affect aspects about him, but they're in a way that he can mature and grow, but he's still himself. He's not like a completely different character. It's like if you saw this guy and you just, he's growing up with the story. He still remains being himself, but he's learned a lot of it from experiences and all these different lessons. And then right now stuff with like Ignia and like seeing this beta heaven when he was talking to like pretty much his brother. That was fantastic. I love Natsu's character. He's got one of the coolest designs in my opinion when it comes to like the main characters. Well, if you go by the actual colors, not the anime where he's got like the bright pink hair. It's closer to this. It should be closer to this. But Natsu not only is my goat, he is at the head of my line for my goats. He's my favorite fucking main character. I really like his design. I'm hyped to see more of where the story goes for him. And like right now, you have him worried about his power, but also the fact that he's up against like this dragon god kind of avatar. There's a lot of fun stuff going on right now with him. I really like Natsu's character. That's my boy. Well, yeah, I have to look back. Etherno isn't chakra. So if you don't know, when you have cross series of like fights and stuff, when you have powers that are about the same, you treat them equally. It's called energy equalization. So you would treat stuff like magic, jutsu, keto, they'd be treated the same. Whereas like if it wouldn't be the same for something like devil fruits. Devil fruits are like more of a genetic thing, and that would be more towards like Quirks and My Hero Academia. Like it's more. When you have them, you have to treat them the same, because otherwise you run into stuff like, well, then how is anyone going to even see characters in Bleach? Will Pain's clone or Pain's puppet even be able to absorb like magic if it's not chakra? You have to treat certain things the same, because they're essentially the same with different small traits to them. It'd be silly to kind of like not treat them the same. Then you run into a lot of stupid arguments. Yeah, I love Natsu. Natsu is my favorite out of Hiromishima's main characters too, and he's got a lot of really good story to him. And like everywhere his story kind of revolves, if you if you watch like my video I did recently of how his journey is kind of like a mirrored version of Acnologia's, but like the person that taught them are really what gave them to ideals and kind of like mindset, and that led them to where they're at now. Yeah, Natsu's my boy. 100 Years Quest is ongoing. Yeah, 100 Years Quest is still going. Let me read this. Naruto fighting style spams Rasengans. Yeah, but if he's got all these clones, if Naruto's got all these clones out, they're all pretty much just chakra versions of himself, as well as his Rasen Shurikens, as well as Biju bombs. Natsu can burn them, because Natsu's ability is he can burn in their world magic based and certain other traits of abilities. But if you treat magic and jutsu as the same thing, chakra and magical power would be treated as the same thing in a cross universe setup. So like all of Naruto's attacks, he's essentially throwing firewood at Natsu. He could still hit and do some damage, but Natsu can just burn it beforehand. It gets worse in the middle of the series, but there's no point where Natsu gets worse. There's no point where Natsu gets worse. In the middle of this series, what are you talking about, like Sirius Island, when he gets humbled by guild arts and he has to realize the whole fact of how dangerous like his mindset of just rushing in with no plan, and like how if you don't admit like being weaker to someone, you're never really going to grow, and how important it is to like acknowledge fear and whatnot. That was a really big point for his character. I don't know what you're talking about. And Hermie when Ingil died because that was Natsu's motivation during the simplest. Natsu's motivation is something simplistic. Other shonen main characters had idealistic dreams. Yeah, he wanted to find his dad. He loved his dad. He really wanted to just figure out what happened to him, because he had this guy who pretty much became his father, and then he just vanished, no word. He didn't know if he was alive or dead for years. He would constantly looking for him, finally finds him, and then Aknologi, rips through him. It was really sad, man. Natsu's goat. Natsu's goat beforehand. I've always really liked Natsu's character. I think he's fun. He's high energy. He's an engaged character. You find out a lot of like his style early on. Look at like the beginning when they're at the Daybreak arc, where they don't end up burning the book. So he's like, well, we're not going to take the reward then, because it would look bad on Fairy Tail's name to to take the reward for something that they didn't really complete. And you find out like stuff about them. He's got like a somewhat of a sense of honor, but it's not towards him, it's towards the guild. Natsu has like he's willing to kind of like look like an asshole and look scummy when it comes to himself, but like if it comes to something that'll put shame on the guild, like just the guild in general, then he's not going to do it. Like the only thing he's not going to do is not be like a roughhousing guy, because that's what the guild is known for. Yeah, Natsu's my boy, man. Is Fairy Tail still going? Yeah, the 100 Years Quest manga is still going. Inky Malinky, I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't like the. I just don't like what the. So it's because the anime made his hair way brighter, and then so cosplayers, I get mad every time I see a Natsu cosplayer. Like I'm still like, oh sweet, they're they're representing, they're repping out the fandom. I'm glad that they picked my boy to play, but they always go with like some bright bubblegum pink like wig, and I'm just like, motherfucker. It's supposed to be a lot darker. It's supposed to be like a rose colored. It's like a pinkish rose color, but people are weird. Ivan the Unstoppable? I don't. Natsu's a better character than Haru. I think part of the reason that I would agree with that is Haru, like I said, Haru didn't get more to his story. He didn't get more potentially to go on for, and he has the feeling of a completed story over Natsu, but Natsu has a lot more events within the story. I think they're both really good, but I like Natsu more, and I think Natsu's Natsu in the way that he has like a lot of reflecting points off of Acnologi and Zeref and potentially Ignia makes him a lot more interesting in terms of like Haru and Shiki. Obviously Shiki's only about 98 chapters in, so it's a little hard to use, but you know what I mean. And just really quick, because it's been a while, I really appreciate anybody who is new and hasn't yet to thumbs up the video, preferring the like button, subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And and if you can, link me to any other people that might want to check out the stream. I do these streams every week. I try and make them interactive so can talk to you guys, the viewers. And as I've said before, I would really appreciate any. So it's always appreciated, never required. Any donations, super chat. Oh, I'm gonna throw it again. Yeah, I gotta bring more water. I have like enough for like one more drink, so I was saving it, but I might need it in a second. My throat's just getting real dry. Yeah, any donations are appreciated. They're not required. Yeah, let me get this water real quick. 1 second. All right, let's just speed up a little because I need a little bit more water. I feel like I have maybe a half hour before it runs out. But yeah, anyway, and like I said, thumbs up, subscribe. Any donations are appreciated. They're not required. I appreciate that, though. Anyway. Oh, one second. I got to figure something out in this game. Oh, shit. Hang on. While I was doing this, I was playing World of Warcraft, and I've been waiting for this rare spawn that comes out only once every 6 hours, and it showed up. I made a macro, and like all you have to do is it's like this frightened Kodo, and you have to chase it and pet it so it calms down, and then you pretty much get it. And that just spawned. I've been sitting here all day, like long before the stream. So this is an extra worthwhile stream. That actually makes me happy because that one's really hard to get. I haven't talked about it before, but I mount collect in the game, and I have like 300. I think I have like 323 mounts now. I'm trying to get as many as possible. But anyway, back to it. So an anti-magic act is Sea Stone in One Piece? No. So the reason is you would treat the things that are similar. Like hockey, you would treat hockey essentially the same thing. Like Asta would be able to essentially deal with hockey, but he wouldn't have any effect on devil fruits. But you have somebody like Eraserhead, or his whole thing is he can look at somebody and turn off their power. He should be able to do that when it comes to devil fruits, but he wouldn't be able to do it when it comes to magic. So you could have a character like, for instance, August and All For One. All For One wouldn't be able to steal anything from characters in Fairy Tail, and August wouldn't be able to copy abilities from people in My Hero Academia. But if you took All For One and put him in One Piece, he should, just by the way that powers are similar, he should be able to steal devil fruit powers from people. And August, if you put him in Black Clover, would be able to copy people's magic in their world because we know how their powers work. You would have to treat them in rules that make sense, but they have to kind of like link up together and work in a way that is similar. You can't just have like two completely different powers. It'd be like trying to like say like a robot. Like if you had a sci-fi series that's all entirely tech. Like obviously it's completely different from something like devil fruits or magic. Natsu's the best at make ass. Yeah, I like him. Oh, I'm the GOAT? Thank you. I appreciate it there, Hulky Tex. I appreciate it, man. Main characters fighting style, sword, gun, and fist. I've tried to make an idea for main characters all to have very different fighting styles. Should I watch Fairy Tail? Yes, you should. It's very good. I would recommend reading the manga and then watching parts of the anime afterwards, because one of the things that definitely the anime has really good music and they have a really good voice acting. Like they're able to do a lot of really good with it. It's the issue with the anime is that it doesn't have the best animation, especially when you compare it to like Kirimashima's. He's got a really good art style, so it's not going to look the same. Remember when he fixed the grave of that village mayor's son? Oh yeah, back in Galuna Island. Natsu is the boy. Problem with Natsu is the whole attacking people who may be in conflict with his friend without knowing the situation and context. The thing is, it really depends. So, if there is a situation where, like, they're a threat to the guild, that's what the guild is always going to focus first. Because the thing about the Fairy Tail Guild is they look out for each other at all costs. Like, that is their thing. That's their big thing. But it's not... They're not going to like, oh yeah, this guy's a serial killer. They're not going to like be like, okay, never mind. We're gonna protect you. It depends on the person, and it depends on the situation. Like with the White Witch, like she was obviously very dangerous. Or not like Laxus was already like, if she's a threat to other people in the guild, even though you're a member, you might have to leave. Rex, you're definitely a power. You should do a power scaling series. I'm gonna do one for Fairy Tail eventually, but I want to pretty much get every character. I started one, but then I got really lazy. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait until we see Viernes, which could be a while, but obviously that gives me time to get everything all prepped up because I want to include Viernes. Like I could not include Ankh-San-Ram and Helef Saria, but I want to include all the dragon gods. Because I'm gonna do one shortly after that. Otherwise, with if I did one, then I would have to update it once we do the Dragon Gods, because I want the Dragon Gods to be in order. After Gildart troubled Natsu, he stops holding back against opponents. Gildart's told him no when to take stuff seriously, and after that, Natsu, even the weakest opponents, he won't hold back without killing. Well, Natsu doesn't like to kill, but he will kill if it has to. If not killing somebody is more dangerous than doing it. He's willing to kill if it means that having somebody alive is a danger to the guild. Natsu is guild above all else. Natsu has more respect for the guild, I'd say, than pretty much anything else. The only thing that I would honestly think that would make sense for him to value more than the guild is if it somehow came down to like Lucy or Happy. That's the only thing I can think of that'd be like, if some crazy scenario where he had to essentially turn on the guild for some reason, it would have to be Lucy or Happy. Natsu's OG. Yeah, I love Natsu. He's my boy. You should probably take a break now, dude. I'm almost done. We're almost done. I'm going to be able to rush through some of these, because some of these guys I don't have a ton to say, but I have some stuff to say about them. Do you think Asa's anti-magic swords would affect quirks? No, I don't. Are you a power scale? I've power scaled sometimes, but not too often. Multitasking 101, yeah. Acnologia beats Aizen. Yeah, Acnologia wouldn't be affected by a lot of what Aizen can do. What are we ranking? I'm doing a list on my, like, Shonen, like a bunch of Shonen main characters and just where I put them in my own personal list of liking them or not. Do a tier list for the original series and update it? Maybe. That's what I'm saying, is maybe. Would you do Jujutsu Kaisen tier list? I could do that. I really like Jujutsu Kaisen. And I don't know if you're one of the guys that maybe found my channel because of Jujutsu Kaisen, but I really like it. I think it's a really good series, and I think that I think it's definitely something that people will have a lot of fun going after. Oh my god, I just realized my GOAT tier list is slightly moved up too far. One second. Let me move this down a little bit. One second. Let's see. I'm gonna move it down a tiny bit. Oh, it's because I scrolled down on the actual page. Here we go. Anyway, yeah, I'm caught up. Let me get to this. How does Aknologia beat Kyoka so he gets? He wouldn't be affected by it. He's not gonna be infected by it. Are you kidding me? And if so many people do you think Gojo could beat on the list? Yeah, we can do a tier list for Jujutsu Kaisen at some point. We can plan that out. I think that'd be fun. I don't like Deku at all. I like Deku. I'm just not a huge fan of him. Where's Jin Mori? I'm not caught up to God of High School. I'm not caught up at all. I'm way behind. Anyway, Rin from Blue Exorcist. I think he's a really solid main character. I think he's a lot of fun. It's really interesting that when it comes to the series, that it's like an action series, but it has a lot of focus on just like character relations, and sometimes it'll kind of like skimp on the action just to kind of like really put emphasis on like when characters are having some form of back and forth or some big character thing, and I think that's really good about it. And really, when I was starting this out, Like, I didn't have like a lot when I was just picking character with certain characters. I didn't really even think about Rin for a bit, but I think that Rin's actually really good, and I think one of the things I like about him a lot is just like certain parts reflecting on the series of like when he was trying to control his flame and how happy he was when he just started to kind of get it, and you were just seeing like the enthusiasm behind this character. I like just a very basic aspect of this guy who just trying to learn these powers, trying to do stuff, trying to get stuff done, and especially when you run into something that really frustrates you, I can understand why you get that gleeful moment when he gets it. So I'm gonna put Rin A. Like him a lot. Okay, fun one. Ruby Rose. Oh wait, Aizen Shikai only works if someone has actually seen his Shikai. I mean, that's also true, yeah. No, I'm asking, how many people do you think Gojo would beat on that tier list? On this tier list, or on a Jujutsu Kaisen tier list? Because Jujutsu Kaisen tier list, he's gonna run through everybody except for Sukuna. Sukuna's a maybe. So okay, so Ruby Rose. The thing is, if this was a year or so ago, I'd probably give her a pretty good spot. I think I'd put her in B. I think I'd put her in B if this was a year ago. Maybe not A. Potential. She was a B, potential A year ago. Volume, was it 7 was the newest one? So throughout the series, there were characters I liked, I didn't like. Ruby Rose was in this weird spot where I was always like, I don't really dislike her, but I don't really like her. She was in a middle ground for me, and then they started to do some interesting stuff for her at the start of Volume 4, and then you find out about the silver eyes and everything, and she started to move up a little bit on my list. And then the last volume happened. Ruby Rose is a terrible main character. Like, I would put her D, or I'd put her F rather if I had an F, and if she didn't have any of those redeeming qualities of like the earlier parts that I talked about. She's got a good design too. I think she's got a really solid design, but she's not smart. She's not even like intentionally like a character that's dumb on purpose to be dumb. She just makes really bad decisions. Yeah, it's unfortunate because in the last one you had like her going against a logical situation where you had these people coming in to try and steal this power and these 2 artifacts. She instead goes against it to make it so getting them out of this character's reach wasn't going to happen because she wanted to, you can't abandon this city, where she could have just stayed behind with her crew and defended the city in the process of being like, we have to help the people. They pretty much render the strongest fighters that kingdom has in their military unable to fight, and then pretty much sets them up so there's no one to defend them when this bad guy actually shows up. Yeah, and then they just leave. Ruby Rose is not a smart person. She has been reminding me a lot about Korra, and I didn't like Korra pretty much at all. Except the voice actor, she's super hot. But Korra I didn't like as a character, and Ruby Rose I really haven't liked as a character over this last year or so. And like I said, I'd put her at a B, a potential A if this was a year or so ago. But I'm gonna put her at D because she's been absolute trash in the last volume. She's made very stupid decisions. She's very stupid comments. She's very stupid allies. Robin Hill, she was a fucking terrorist. That woman was not she's like a Robin Hood who does bad stuff to help others. She was a straight terrorist. She was not a good person. And you have like idiots like Ruby Rose and them kind of all like banding up with these people, not doing what they actually need to in order to help like the world. They're being very selfish and idiotic and short-sighted, and I thought that was ridiculous. I'm putting her ass in B. She's not smart. She pisses me off. Like, it's like thinking about that volume. Like, that volume made me so angry, and some of those, if you watch like my Ruby, like I said, I think it was volume 7. If you watch that as I'm talking about it, I was getting so mad at some of the parts. Like it had been a while since the series had generally made me angry, just because of so many dumb writing decisions that made no sense other than just to do it, and it just made me angry. And I hated that so much, and I want to continue the series, and I'm hoping that they're able to pick up and figure out what went wrong. That maybe they'll move it back into a better direction. Let me see. Nothing against me. It's just all about like ethnology and stuff. Would Natsu solo Narutoverse in its END form? Potentially. Right now, the big issue with his biggest form, with his EDF form, is it will slowly destroy him because his body can't handle it yet. So he would die before he could finish fighting people. He would die before that happens. Aizen's Kyokusui gets worked on. So he wasn't omnipotent. He was not omnipotent, or he would have seen certain events coming that he would have fought against. He had future sight and he had a really good power, but his power wasn't infinite. And that doesn't matter because nothing about his power is the same as like Acnologia's. Acnologia is going to be immune to magic and similar based abilities, as well as he already also has soul manipulation that would be coupled on top of it. Acnologia was literally sucked into a hole in the universe created by the concept of time to try and repair itself, where he ate it, that something that was beyond human comprehension, and then absorbed it, and then created matter into a world where nothing existed, and then broke reality and space like glass with his bare hands. Acnologia is a fucking savage and an absolute monster. Absolute beast. Okay, next one. Sawyer. This one I just thought of when I was like looking at videos and like pictures to put in here, and I wanted to put him in here because I was like, well, I can't just do like all these big ones. I'll do a small one that maybe not a lot of people know about. So this is a series from Marygrave, and unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I think the author got sick or something, and they had to end it, or what. I'm not too sure. But it was a really interesting series. The main character, just funny enough, he's this undead zombie guy, and he's carrying around a coffin of his wife, because what happened is he died at one point, and his wife spent like her whole life getting all these supplies to bring him back to life. She brings him back to life, but in the process, she dies of old age. So now he's trying to do the same thing so he can bring his wife back to life so they can be together again. And like it's done in a lot of really fun ways. And like one of the things like in the character, because he's a zombie, he's able to like push his body like beyond human limits. So he's able to like do and use abilities that were too dangerous for other people. It's a really fun series. It's definitely good. I like the art a lot. I don't know if the author is doing a new series. I haven't checked in a while, but I should, because I really like what they did. And I wish the series didn't get... I wish it didn't end. I thought it was really good. I'm going to put it B, just because he was unique, and he had a really good design. Let's see. What's funny is I'm looking at these, I'm like, how... I don't think any are going to C left. I think C, it's going to be like all B and A's. But, Seth from Radiant. So I'm not caught up on Radiant. From where I'm at, was like right at the part where he was learning to control that, form. I don't even know what it's called. Like, you know, he's got the black energy on him. I think he's a really good character, and even in the parts like early on, you get a lot of really nice character stuff in there about how like he was treated like a monster by all these people, and how like, he eventually starts to kind of like try to be more compassionate towards like these actual monsters and stuff. There's a lot of really fun stuff in Radiant. I gotta get caught up with. I want to talk more about him, but because I feel like Radiant is very underrated. I think it's actually really good. But I'm gonna put him at B, just because I feel like he's an A. I just haven't gotten to the part in the series that makes him an A. I want to put him as an A, but feel like I need to get caught up. I feel like right now, if I got up to the chapters that are currently available to me, he'd be in an A spot. I just have a feeling when it comes to it. Shiki Grand Bell. You already know that he's gonna be highly ranked. Shiki is a really good main character. I think he's fantastic. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's got a great design. He's got a great power. I love the fact that it has like a tone of Hiro Mishima, but it's not fairy tale with Eden Zero. I think that's the easiest way to kind of like just do away with like, oh, it's fairy tale in space. It's not, because even in the most basic aspects with the tone of the series, it's different. Like, Rave Master was the story of this dude, like this dude from bumfuck nowhere on some island that goes on this grand journey to save the world. Fairy Tail is about, like, this guy who, not even talking about his backstory, essentially this guy who works for this wizarding guild who's just constantly getting caught in all these adventures and, like, doing these stuff to, like, defend it and whatnot. Eden Zero is, like, it's more of an adventure series through space. It's like this big, like, trek through the stars and, like, different places they can experience along the way. Acnologia versus Yach. I don't want to do any more versus stuff. I don't. We're gonna finish this up. I'm already like 2 hours and something minutes in. Actually, I think I'm almost 3 hours into this. Let's see. I'm gonna put Shiki. I'm gonna put Shiki A. He's borderline S. Shiki's borderline S. I think Shiki is barely. I'm gonna put Shiki way further up. I think Shiki is, out of this rank, I think he's the closest to becoming an S for me. That's because it would be either between him or Haru, but obviously Haru's story is... Oh, hang on.
1 second, I'm gonna go get some water real quick. I'll be right back. I'm back. Oh my god. That's hurt my throat. Anyway, yeah. Shiki is a borderline S. I think just maybe another arc or two, and he'll be right as rain in an S spot with me. Shinra, I don't have a lot to say about Shinra. I like his design. I think he's pretty cool. He's got a good backstory. I'm putting it B. I'm gonna try and speed through some of this just because it's been over 2 hours, almost 3 hours. Simon, I'm gonna put him at C. And the reason that is I think he's a solid character. I think he's really good. He's never been too great for me. I think Gurren Lagann, to me at least, it's the overall story itself, the whole thing. There was never any time, besides Kamina, that I got really attached to a character. Am I going to add Yuga? I mean, yeah, but Yuga's only, what, like 6 episodes in? Okay, let me keep going. I'm trying to run this out. Yeah, I like Simon. I think he's pretty good. I think he's fun. I like how the first couple episodes, first couple episodes, he doesn't even feel like the main character, and then just like coming out of nowhere, just dies, and then it's okay. Switch over to this dude. Staz, I like Staz a lot. I'm putting him at B. I think the fact that they made him, they took an otaku kind of like style character, and they actually did it in an interesting, fun way, and all while like having its own weird kind of tone with Blood Lad, I think was fantastic. But who cares? Add Makima for fun. Makima's not a main character. She's not the main character. Yeah. So Shiki's better than Jotaro. This is my opinion. I said these are where I like the characters. I'm not here to argue about like, oh, this guy's just better by default. And this is the ones that I like. These are the ones I like. These are my guys. These are my fellas. Well, some of them are girls. Tanjiro. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a huge fan of Tanjiro. I don't find him that interesting. I'm going to put him as a C. I think he's got a cool design. I think he's got a cool attacks. But I mean, like, what's his story? He's just trying to get his sister cured, but that's about it. There's not a whole lot beyond that. I don't find him that cool. I mean, like, I was never a huge fan of Jotaro. I like Joseph more. Baki. I definitely am enjoying Baki. I think Baki's pretty cool so far. I put the Teen Baki just because I'm only at that part. I'm only like 130 or 40 chapters in right now. I think he's a pretty good character. I think he's fun. I think he gets the job done, and I think he's pretty well in his reason. Like, I like that his goal is essentially to beat his father to end like this sickness in his head. I think that's pretty cool. Toriko. I do love Toriko. Toriko's a really fun character. Design-wise is great. His spot in the story is great. Like his attacks and everything. I think he's just in general a fun character. He's very selfless. I like that everything he does usually is for others, and outside of like when it's eating and just enjoying gluttony. I think Toriko's great, and I really like the series. That was one of those ones that I wish that it didn't get canned. Like, I think it got axed. I think it didn't. It definitely didn't end with the idea of like, oh yeah, this is the end. I think the author definitely wanted to do more with like the space stuff. Suna in C? I wouldn't put Suna in C. I'm putting Suna in... I put him in B. If there was something between C and B, maybe. But I think Suna is overall a pretty good character. I think he's fun. The areas that wouldn't have him higher
isn't because of like the overall story. It's because of the ending. I think it's because of the ending, because there was no real resolution when it came to him with the Vongola boss. He never became Vongola Primo. He just kind of ended that whole setup, and then was like, "Oh, well, you'll be the Neo Vongola," or he never became Vongola Decimo. It was like, "Oh, you'll be the Neo Vongola Primo. We'll make you #1, but like sort of different." I didn't like that at all. Power-wise, he's pretty cool. His forms and like the art style is obviously pretty good. I enjoy Suna as a character. I didn't put Thorfinn in there. Listen, it's not gonna have every character. There's definitely gonna be ones missing. I mean, look how long this has already been, and it's been like almost 3 hours, and I've only had 53 characters, and I'm almost done. Sosuke Eki from Law of Eki. This one is a little bit difficult for me because I want to put him. He's between A and B. You know what? I'm gonna put him in A, just because design-wise, he's really good. He's a fun character. His attacks are cool. He's really good in his own in his story. He's really good. I think there's a lot more positives when it comes to it than like I can't even think of really anything negative about him. But I was trying to think of like what would be a con to really kind of like put him below A rank. He is a character. If the story was still going, I'd put him in S. I love Law of Eki. That's one of those series that I've always really enjoyed, that I never see a lot of people really talking about. And I would highly recommend getting into it. It's definitely a fun series. I'm hoping yeah, I know I talk a lot. It's not my fault. It's both a skill and a curse. I wish that I had the ability to not talk. Like it's just like a TLDR. I spent years, like I think it was like near my end of high school. I was just kind of like honing myself to talk less. And so, like, anytime I'm not, like, talking a bunch, I'm just silent. So, like, anytime I'm on stream, because, like, the point is to talk a lot and have a lot of conversation with the people in the stream, that I end up talking a lot more than I usually do. Like, when I'm met with, like, people at work, I'll just talk to them all day. Like, I just try and keep them occupied, try and keep, like, conversations going, because then it just makes the fucking shift go by faster, and then it's quicker to going home. Yugimoto, that, easy. S. 100% easy S. And especially because Yu-Gi-Oh! Like is in that weird spot, we don't even know if like it's gonna do more with the original cast or what with some of like the specials and everything. I mean, we don't even know if they're gonna. They've already teased that Sevens was gonna be an anniversary series, so maybe they might bring in Yugi, and I would love to see Yugi again. But I love Yugimoto. The only reason I wouldn't put him in GOAT, the only reason. Actually, you know what? I'm trying to think about it. No, I'm putting him in GOAT. What am I talking about? I'm an idiot. I'm putting him in GOAT. Yugi is an absolute fucking badass. Yugi's awesome. He's extremely likable as a character. He's fantastic. Like seeing like where he came like from like the start of like how much of a coward he was. He was weak and just an overall like he couldn't really do a whole lot. And then when you see like where he's at now, like he became way more of a strong person, way more capable, way more of being able to hold his own. And it's similar to like how Atem went from like a very crazy kind of like chaotic being to much more honed and honorable individual. I thought they did really well at benefiting off each other. Yuji. I like Yuji. I don't love him. I think he's a pretty good character, and I think that it's only, I've mentioned in a lot of my videos, I think we're just now getting to more about him, because like up until, there's a lot of points in Jujutsu Kaisen where Yuji isn't in the front. He's not the guy. Like look at the whole flashback portion. It wasn't anything to do with him. It was like what 20 something chapters of not him. So like 6-7 months in real life time of the main character not being within the series. So, like, you know, they had to emphasize up Satoru, they had to do stuff with Megumi, and we finally start seeing him do stuff again. I want to put him in B. I think he's B, potential A. You know, I think he's got high potential, kind of like someone like MASH or something. Yuma. I'm actually going to put Yuma in A. No, yeah, I'm going to put Yuma in A. Yuma, the reason that's probably confusing is Yuma is extremely annoying at the start, very untalented at the start. I think that's the point. Actually, no, I'm gonna put him in B. I think it fits more in B, because a lot of his best parts are in synergy with Astral, and it's not the same story as like Yugi and Atem and how they benefited from each other. Yumiko Jabani from what's it pronounced, Kakeguri. She's interesting. I don't have a ton to say about her, but I like her. I think she's an interesting character. I like that she's just this being of chaos and risk and just absolute psycho. Yusaku. Yusaku's actually I like Yusaku. I think he's pretty good. I think he's a very enjoyable character. I think he was a lot of fun as playmaker. But out of like the big three from the series, like you had Playmaker, you had Revolver, and you had Soulburner, and I'd say Yusaku was like the weakest out of those three. I don't want to put him in. Oh, I don't want to put him in. I'm gonna put him in B. I think he deserves B. I think he's like I think he's like a B minus. I think he's like at 82% on a test. He's not great. And you know what? I'm just gonna jump on it. I'm gonna put I'm gonna put you there as well. So now, and just think of an S class. Think of Yusei being an S class just because he needs to be there, and I wish I fixed that before I got to it. Yusuke Urameshi, because I know that people really were looking forward to me talking to Yusuke. Yusuke is a very beloved character. He's probably the first delinquent that I think a lot of people really like or get into. I like him. I think he's a really solid character. I'm trying to think, because, like, I like Yu Yu Hakusho, but I was never one of those dudes who was super hyped about Yu Yu Hakusho. It was one of those series that I think, it's like what I talk about with like, Legend of Zelda. I like it, but there was never a point where I was, like, amazing hype for it. Like, I always enjoyed when it was on, and when it was on, I always watched it, and I always enjoyed it. But there was never a point where I was, like, I don't think I own any Yu Yu Hakusho merchandise, and I've never put it on a list. Maybe eventually I'll start buying Yu Yu Hakusho volumes. But I do have to give Yusuke a lot of credit. Design-wise, Yusuke looks pretty cool. I like his demon form. I think the way that he fights in general. I like that he's mostly like this martial arts, but he's also got like these ranged spirit weapons. I think he's pretty well when it comes to that. I'm gonna put him in A. And like I said, the difference between A and S is like setting up for like my top people, like my goats. So Asta and Denji in there. I would only put Yusei in there just because Yusei is like in that weird tiering spot between S and GOAT. Just because I'm not going to put him in A. I'm not putting Yusei in A. Yusei would be an S. So you don't like Goku? Yo, Goku's not my guy. I've never been a huge Goku guy. Well, maybe when I was like super young and like I only knew like 3 anime, but I'm not a huge fan of Goku. When I was a kid, I had a He action figure and didn't know who he was at the time. The anime was just from, I just found out who he was last year. That's pretty funny. I can't think of any merchandise that might have happened with me. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I don't think I had any characters that I just had no idea who they were. I mean, I guess if I did, I wouldn't remember them. So you wouldn't put Haru or Shiki in S. I'm putting them both at A. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put Shiki in S. I think you're right on that one. Because Shiki is the only thing that separates Haru from being an S. Is Haru story is over, at least for the most part. S is like going up to be like in my GOAT tier. S is like if you had everybody in the A tier. Like if you didn't have S and like the idea of S tier, it's like everybody is in. Imagine these guys are all in A, and it's like, hey, we're gonna invent this new spot of like it's essentially the potentials for the GOAT class, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna select these guys, and these guys are gonna be the spot like leading up to it, kind of like that. They're like potentials for Hall of Fame essentially. That's the difference. If Rave Master was still going, I'd put Haru in S. You know, actually, hang on. Because now that I think about it, I feel like if I reread Rave Master, then it would be different. I would want to emphasize him more. I am going to put him up there. I'm going to put Haru in S. Because I also think that I am gonna count like Haru in Heroes, and Mishima already said he was gonna do Heroes, like a sequel to Heroes. So we're gonna get more of that universe anyway. Who is between Yugi and Guts? Oh, that's Zatch from Zatch Bell. Anyway, yeah. So this is gonna be my final list out of these characters. Next time we do a main character list, it's gonna be way bigger. We're gonna do way more characters, and we're going to it'll be a longer stream. I'll probably do it way faster. And it'll be more like, I put a character up, we'll do a short talk, and then if somebody really wants me to emphasize something, then I'll explain it instead of just like, before I put someone somewhere. Kind of like that kind of scenario.
It'll be more of like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's put this here. And it's like challenge. It's like, well, let me tell you why I put them there. Kind of like set up to make it go faster. Anyway, other than that though, thanks everyone for showing up. I think this was a pretty good stream. I enjoyed talking to you guys. I enjoyed some of the conversation. Well, I enjoyed the conversation. I don't think there was any points I didn't enjoy. But yeah, it's been like 3 hours. Like we went a good hour and a half. Like I expected an hour and a half, but I went on some rants and tangents that I usually do. I mean, I've had some longer streams, so I'm glad that this is only 3 hours. I can get some stuff done. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below. And I got that mount while I was doing stuff in my game. And I'm going to be able to remember that. I'm actually probably going to rewatch for the stream just for that one scene, just to hear how excited I was. Because I was like just looking, and then I was like, oh, what's that on my map? And then I clicked my macro I made to target it. I was like, oh shit, go do stuff with it. I didn't even look up what to do. Instead of killing it, you have to pet it. So like you pretty much tame it. And I had no idea. I'm glad nobody else was there. But anyway, other than that, yeah, it was fun debating about Knott's first millions where Luffy hates his dad in the chat. I mean, did Luffy? I don't think he hates his dad. I think it's just kind of weird he wouldn't want to go help him, because then he'd want to learn about him, and he still has family. I don't know. Either way, though. Anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, like I said, and I appreciate everyone for showing up. Until next time, yeah, next Saturday we'll probably do another stream. Maybe next Saturday, we'll see. I might put that one on Sunday. Anyway, yeah, thanks for showing up, guys. Yeah, this was a long stream. Yeah, see ya.